O! Zapowiedź sezonu, widzowie! Zapowiedź drugiego sezonu.
Season 2 will be our biggest update to Diablo 4 since launch.
No to nie jest ciężkie.
Events to play as you drive back the vampiric horde, unholy
Vampiry
powers to wield, and new endgame
wow.
encounters to test your skill.
And players will need to harness the enemy's own blood magic against them to end this new evil before it's too late. In Diablo 4, the Season of Blood.
Season of Blood!
The people of Sanctuary have a new danger to face. Invasion by an army of vampires. This shadowy vampire
wow.
has laid claim to large areas of the world and have begun abducting innocent
Widzowie dodali nowy model mobów do Diablo. To jest 20% wzrost ilości modeli w grze. To nie jest byle co.
Lord Zir is a remnant of a lost age. Before there were humans in Sanctuary, it was inhabited by the firstborn children of Inarius and Lilith, who are known as the Ancients.
But because of Inarius' actions, the Ancients had their powers drawn away from them. But some among them were not strictly subject to a true death.
Zir and his cohort were banished to sleep for an eternity in the city of the Ancients, but due to the events of Diablo 4,
Okej, czyli lokacji nowych nie ma.
with dire consequences for the
Jest
humans
dodana
living
stara
on the surface
lokacja
above.
z nowymi
During the events of
elementami.
Season 2, the player is going to contract a vampiric curse, but they're not under Lord Zir's control, which gives them a unique opportunity to strike back against the cult and stop Lord Zir's plans.
We'll encounter a variety of new characters this season, including a band of vampire hunters. One with a particularly
Więcej bandytów, ale zajebiście.
Seek out Zir's army. Kill as many as you can.
Eris is a professional vampire hunter. She's crossed and recrossed the wilds of Sanctuary, putting an end to the
Ale
undead
super.
since long before the events of Diablo 4.
I need to go after the magistrate and you're gonna have to come along.
Eris is played by actor Gemma Chan. It's exciting to see more film and television actors lending their talents to the video game world. Gemma brings a wealth of experience to the table from a wide variety of roles. She was a great choice to breathe life into this character of a world-weary but determined vampire hunter with a lot of emotional complexity.
That's a bite mark. You're changing, aren't you?
Ej, oni mają tak mało zmian sezonowych, że muszą wpierdalać przybitki z nagrywania dialogów do nowych postaci. Czajcie to?
And stubborn and fixed in her worldview. Oh, you're going to change. I'm sorry, but
jak tu musi nie być kontentu?
It never does.
She realizes that the player character has these vampire traits, which makes him a useful tool,
Tak, znowu gadka o
but
pasji.
potentially disposable one.
This is madness.
I fajnie, że wszystko, że w ogóle początek sezonu toczy się w czymś, co widzieliśmy w becie. W podstawowym pokoju. To też jest pokój, który widzieliśmy w becie. To też jest kurwa arena, którą widzieliśmy w becie. Plaża, Poe. Jezu, oni znowu jakieś koszta dodają do robienia buildu. Znowu robisz build kosztem czegoś. Gemy! Wkładasz stare gemy, inny typ gemów.
So long as you have the appropriate combination of packs in order to power them.
One thing we've really tried hard to do is to provide powers that enhance every
Nowością w Diablo 4 z pierwszego sezonu było wkładanie gemów. Teraz będziesz wkładał czaszki.
They'll curse creatures they pass through along the way. As you kill those creatures, you're going to actually steal their souls. When you use certain abilities on your character, all of those souls are unleashed, dealing devastating damage to nearby creatures.
There's also an ability called Rising Moon, where you can stack basic skills, and after you reach a maximum number of stacks, you go into a vampiric blood rage. If you can't get enough of bats, there's even a vampire power that allows you to summon a bat companion.
Ale w tej grze nie ma mobów, żeby to nabijać.
Lord Zir's army is pushing across Sanctuary.
Ej, nie wiem, kto na to wpadł, ale ja w hack and slashu nie chcę spanować mobów, tylko je zabijać.
Blood harvests are large-scale open-world events where vampires have overwhelmed an area in the hopes of enslaving the populace, harvesting their blood, and siring more vampires.
Aha, czyli to są terror zony nowe. Aha, czyli przekopiowali coś, co jest w grze, tylko nie pojawiają się tam demony, tylko wampiry teraz. A oni nie mają w ogóle pomysłu. Endgame bosses.
Season 2, the Season of Blood, we're going to be adding 5 new returning endgame bosses for players to engage
5 new returning.
World Tiers 3 and 4.
No to new
Players will earn
returning.
materials to summon these bosses by completing Whispers and by completing Helltide events.
We have some new enemies with powerful elemental attacks, giving players more reason to seek out and equip gear that enhances
5 new
their
returning
resistances.
bosses.
What sets these new in-game bosses apart is that they offer a new way to farm uniques.
Czyli zbierzemy
So if there's a
śmieci,
build
które są w
defining
grze.
unique you're after, you'll be able to target farm specific bosses.
And our most challenging boss that we're going to be adding as part of Season 2 is also
Loot
gonna have an
table
updated
będzie
drop
w bossach.
extremely rare unique items that players have been hunting for.
Okej,
We're
czyli
also
super
gonna be adding
uniki
some
padają z
quality life
bossów
updates
teraz.
in Season 2. The first of which is we're going to be taking our gem system and making it so when gems drop for the player, you're actually collecting materials. They're going to be stored differently. They're not going to go into your inventory the same way to help alleviate some of the concerns about inventory space that players have talked about before.
As long as you finish the prologue, you can now choose to skip the rest of the campaign and
Czyli
dive
będzie
straight
jeszcze-
into creating a seasonal character.
Tak, z jednej strony to jest dobre z tymi dżemami, z drugiej strony to jest całkowicie zły sposób rozwiązany. Jako w ogóle masy.
As we do with every new season, we'll be adding a new season journey and a new battle pass filled with new vampiric-themed cosmetics for them to
Mamy
collect.
to!
And we'll also be adding some
Kosmetyki,
new
battle
town
pass,
core cosmetics, both in
essa!
the free and paid versions of our battle pass in Season 2. We'll also be making a number of other changes to the game, updating unique powers and items, reviewing legendary aspects for different classes. We're going to be updating stats like our resistance values across the game, and a number of other balance tweaks to make sure the game is as fun as possible for players.
One of the most exciting things for me about working
Ja
on
Fergusona
Seasons is
wypierdolili, nie?
that, Sanctuary's a big place and there's a lot going on. The primevals and the angelic forces are still very much in play, but I think players are going to enjoy seeing some more human scale dramas play out.
Diablo 4's second
Tak,
season will be our
tego
largest content
brakowało.
update yet, but we're
Human
only getting
scale
started.
dramas.
Along with providing new quest lines, powers, and events each season, we'll continue to improve upon established systems by listening to player feedback to make your adventure in Sanctuary the best it can
Dobra,
be.
to w dużym skrócie w grze się nic nie zmienia. Nie ma żadnych zmian, które jakkolwiek wpływały na gameplay.
Hey guys, how's it going? Long time no see. Welcome to
Wyjebali
another
Fergusona.
developer update live stream for Diablo 4. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the community director here for Diablo. I'm joined by our wonderful panel here. Some familiar faces, one new face. Feel free to introduce yourselves, you guys.
O, ale
I'm Dave
ten...
Shelley, game director for Diablo 4. I'm
Janusz
Antonio
Skorupa
Watson,
został.
associate
On coraz
dungeon
smutniejszy.
designer for Diablo 4.
And I'm Joe Pipora. I'm the associate game director for Diablo 4's live service.
And I know you guys
Józef
actually just saw
Przypióra,
an early look at
Janusz Skorupa
season 2,
I
season of
Adam
Blood,
Łuczarz.
with that video before the actual live stream kicked off. I do want to start off before we kick off into this conversation.
Yeah.
There is going to be an emergency alert if you live in the U.S. at 11:20 on every single mobile device. So you may actually see us look at our phones or our watches, or you might hear it at home if you live in the U.S. So if you do hear a weird noise or something, we've tried throwing everyone's phones out of the room,
Helwer, dzięki za suba.
it still might happen. So it's a good time check, though, which it lets me know that it's 11:20, which is really funny. But we do have a lot to...
Dobra,
Pacific
zaczynamy.
time.
Yes, Pacific time, 11:20 Pacific. Sorry, we live in California, and so that is the time that we kind of base it. So based off your time zone, that is in 17 minutes, everyone. But I did want to give that heads up to everyone that if you hear a weird noise, or if you hear a weird noise at home, that's what it is. It's a test. If you live in the U.S., that is. But we do have a lot to talk about here. We do want to talk about Season 2.
Wielebny, dzięki za pierwszy sezon.
I go through all the gameplay mechanics, a little bit about the story, some of the new elements that are coming.
Jezu, ale się cieszę, że będę mógł pożreć to ponownie, jak mi brakowało tego plucia jadem. Ciekawe, czy ludzie zadali wystarczająco dużo pytań o Battle Passa.
Season transition for players between both seasons. And then we have a bunch of gameplay updates and quality of life updates to actually go through a ton.
Nie, to już widać po zapowiedzi. Tu gameplay właśnie nic nie zmienia, ta gra nadal będzie gównem, nie? To jak tylko po to przyszliście, to możecie się rozejść, nie? No, quality of life, kluczowe elementy sezonu, no.
Announcements to make regarding Diablo 4 towards the end. And of course, we have our Q&A. Which we'll be taking questions from Twitch chat, and then I know we actually have some questions from the forums because we had started a forum thread earlier this week or late last week regarding the developer update live stream. So I do know that we do want to kick it off.
Ja bym zadał pytanie na Q&A, kiedy OnlyFans dla
So,
Lilith, bo i tak już ją kurwią gdzie się tylko da.
So, I know that we just watched the video together where we talked about the Season of Blood, but in Season 2, the players are going to be confronting a new villain who's begun to like surface throughout Sanctuary. A character named Lord Zier, this ancient vampire who's awoken recently and begun to like gather all of these vampire cultists and other followers to his banner in an effort to like kind of overtake Sanctuary and achieve his own aims across the world. Now, while the player is progressing through the season, they're going to meet a new character named Eris, who I think we have. So you're going to meet Eris during the course of the season. Eris is a vampire hunter who's been trying to like thwart the past, like the past few weeks and months. Trying to hunt them down and try to eliminate them entirely. She's not having great luck sort of investigating the cults. She needs more help. The player is going to kind of enter the picture, but as part of the story, as the mild spoiler here, but the player is going to contract vampirism. Now, but due to the strange nature of the interaction with the Lilith's blood in the player character, they're going to be able to resist some of the effects of Lord Zier's influence. Instead, gain all of those same powers without those detriments that are holding back other creatures.
No, oryginalny pomysł na postać, to prawda.
Eris is going to be fairly nervous about this, as she's only ever seen anyone who ends up actually contracting vampirism this way end up following and serving Lord Zier in the end, regardless of their intentions overall, which we dig more into a little bit later on.
Jest nowa klasa.
But this represents this like
Ta, no. 6 nowych klas zapowiedzieli, 3 nowe światy, 4 poziomy trudności i 300 nowych przedmiotów.
So as you're going through these things, you'll be kind of going across all of the world. And I know, Antonio, we talked about how, or rather we had talked before about how there are a number of dungeons we added with the season, and like you kind of go into some of those part of the quest line.
Yeah, so we have new dungeons that are part of the quest line. You can
Valer, dzięki za Prima.
There's a really cool dungeon at the end when you're going to confront Zier for the final battle. And in addition to that, throughout the story, you will be revisiting some old places that are a bit different now that Zier's minions have
Jaskinia, kurwa, skale, kurwa, z piachem. Giga, kurwa, dobry design ma ten dungeon.
The new dungeons in the quest line are pretty cool, particularly that finale that you called out, like when you're going to sort of get a chance to, once you've tracked down Lord Zier.
Czy to było w grze, kurwa, co nie pierdolą, że to jest new dungeon.
Those are some pretty epic moments that we don't want to actually show on stream just now.
To kurwa w grze było.
All that stuff just yet. But definitely a lot of things to look forward
to. Jestem jakiś odjebany, czy to było?
Characters as well as they're progressing through the season.
Aha, a te moby są po prostu przekolorowane na czerwono. Ja pierdolę, to nie są nowe moby, one są przekolorowane. Ja pierdolę.
That's kind of like the high level of what's happening in the world. Basically, Lord Zier and his army of vampiric cultists are trying to take everything over.
Ale zajebisty update. Szkielety zamiast szare będą teraz kurwa czerwone.
The next thing I want to talk about are mechanics, like what you're going to be doing during the season to kind of gain power and such. So we talk about the fantasy of the season is that the player is basically becoming part vampire during the course of their
Zobacz na czacie, wcisnę z nich bekę.
Part of that comes down to making sure that we have cool vampiric powers for players to collect and use.
Gonna report this stream.
Is our
Thank God I can disable the chat.
This is the way players are going to be able to collect a lot
boring.
of powers to progress
One new dungeon.
And then slot them into
That's an old dungeon.
So
Season 2.
Acquire up to 22 vampiric powers as they play. And these are designed such that they are unlike in Season 1 where
when it's time you have 10% chance to feel nearby enemies to slow them, co za gówno! Po co ci w hack and slashu szansa na slowowanie przeciwników, gdy dostaniesz stana? Co to za gówno?
Play with as they're thinking about their build. And yeah, so we have a few of these shown up right here.
Tworzenie jakichś gówna, co eksploduje. Vampiric Curse. Zadawanie więcej damage'a. Poczekaj, oni wyjebali mechanikę tego. No, jak to się nazywało? Osłabienia przeciwników? Tylko po to, żeby dodać na lucky hicie Vampiric Curse'a, który osłabia przeciwników? Oni wyjebali Vernables, żeby w sezonie dodać Vernables?
And it's a way for the player to deliver a new effect that you can get throughout the season, which is called Vampiric Curse. So when you see that that red effect
Patrz,
above the,
to jest
a lot of
werny
creatures
był,
that the player
nowy.
is fighting, they're under the effects of vampiric curse. And if you kill them while that effect is active on those creatures, you get to steal their souls and bind them to you for a short period of time, up to 8 of them at a time. And then when you choose to use a defensive ability on your character, you unleash all of these souls. As you can see here, these missiles, like these spirit missiles that fly out
Defensywne
of lots of different
abilitki
creatures,
triggerują
as
ofensywne
the
skille,
front
okej.
row. So it kind of gives you this opportunity as you're going through packs and dungeons or elsewhere to kind of stack these up.
Dzięki, Herbie, za
quickly
drugi
burn down
miesiąc.
groups or elites that you might have to come across as you're playing. There's other cool things you'll get, like there's abilities for based on
A te
other
duchy
convenience
fajne.
uses and other
Fajnie
things
to
that you might
wygląda.
have. Like we have this, like where the bats will come down and attack your enemies. And then many other powers. We talked about, like, there was an overpower power we showed before. There's another one here that is more focused on channeling skills.
Ale to nic nie
here it
zmienia,
is.
nadal
So
będziesz grał
when
tymi
you start
samymi
using channeling
buildami.
skills, people drop this pool of blood around you, which gives you some extra protection. It also enhances all the
Aha,
damage you do
channeling
while you're
skille mają
nearby.
protekcję
So this
teraz,
is going to be
okej.
able to fire when you're using like any kind of channeling skill and enhance those channeling skills. It just gives you a bit more positional gameplay to be thinking about when you're playing into this build. So pretty fun ways for you to kind of maximize and get extra damage rather from a channeling build for a class.
Ej, tu nie ma jak na razie
One
nic
thing that's
takiego
cool about the
niesamowitego.
vampiric- that I like about the vampiric curse is that there are a few different ways.
Oni totalnie nie rozumieją, w jaki sposób tą grę przebudować. Ale wydaje mi się, że ta gra ze skillami jest tak rozjebana, że oni już chyba nie są w stanie tego zrobić. Bo oni dodają coś nowego, ale to są chujowe rozwiązania, to są nudne rozwiązania.
So the next thing I want to talk about was actually how you're able to
Mi
fuel
się
your
wydaje, że oni tego nie chcą rozwiązać, bo trzymają jakieś rozwiązanie, które by mogło naprawić grę na dodatek, żeby sprzedać dodatek. Oni tego nie zrobią celowo. Oni dodają takie gówna, a jak ktoś faktycznie wymyślił coś dobrego, to trzymają na dodatek. I wtedy zapowiedzą dodatek, że naprawiliśmy grę. Więc tu nic nie zobaczycie ciekawego w sezonach. No patrzcie, to są kurwa gemy te same co wcześniej. Patrz jak wygląda item. Masz 3 gemy, 4 gwiazdki i jeszcze 3 jakieś gówna. Już powoli nic kurwa nie widać na tych przedmiotach, przecież to wygląda gorzej już niż w mobilkach. Już w mobilkach nawet nie jest tak zjebane. Masz tak, runę, gemy, nie, to jest transmog chyba, gemy, gwiazdki i pucharki, kurwa. Dzięki, profesor Ludolog.
They're able to collect from completing various content types. We'll talk a little bit more about in a minute.
Ej, ale to nadal nie sprawia, że ta gra jest ciekawa. Wy to czajcie, nie? Jesteście w stanie to zrozumieć? Że jeżeli nadal progresja postaci będzie taka sama do momentu kurwa sezonowego, w którym zaczniesz to dropić, jeżeli nadal będziesz używał tych samych nudnych skilli, tych samych nudnych buildów, które teraz nagle w trakcie puszczenia nowe będą wypuszczały z siebie duchy, to jest tak samo chujowe. To nic nie zmienia gameplayowo. Fajnie, że dodałeś dodatkowy efekt, ale Diablo nie jest grą, którą się naprawia poprzez dodanie efektu na używaniu defensywnego skilla. Dzięki, Imperator, za drugi miesiąc.
But killing Bloodseekers is a way to get these in a really good way. So there's lots of ways to kind of grab these. So that is that's kind of like the very high level. We'll talk more about the about like other things you'll be doing to gain those vampire powers. We get to some of the other sections of when we're talking about season 2. But there's also a lot of new enemies.
Zacznijmy od tego, że w ogóle mało kto w pierwszym sezonie w ogóle zbierał te dżemy.
So as part of season 2, we actually added a bunch of new monsters.
Bo nikt nie chciał.
Lord Zier has a ton of different minions that will be all throughout the continent.
To jest nowy, czy to jest reskin? Kurwa, to jest reskin chyba, przecież były takie przygarbione skurwysyny.
They have a bunch of really cool new attacks. You'll see them all on
to są reskiny, kurwa.
Overworld. You'll see them in a variety of dungeons. Paired with these guys, we also have our blood skeletons. These guys are kind of similar to regular skeletons, but they also come with new attacks that allow you to have new counterplay and techniques in order to defeat them and get around them. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, they have like a little more area denial baked into their kits, right? As you're fighting some of the blood skeletons.
Yeah, you definitely want to watch where you step, like when you're in.
Oh, chuj.
Yeah. And the vampires have like these cool things where they occasionally drop these like giant like heart-like lumps on the ground, and sometimes they'll be able to trigger shields off of these things. So you kind of like change your target priority as you're going through
Cool
space
chuj,
where you
no.
have to fight shadow vampires frequently to make sure
No
that you're not
nałóżmy
being
czerwony
taken out,
filtr
prevent
na
those shields
moby,
from
jest
being
no.
So yeah, there's some cool things to react to as part of this.
Widzowie, za mało skinów najprawdopodobniej kupiliście, nie ma z czego gry rozwijać.
There's the man himself, right?
Yeah. So we also have Lord Zir. Here he is on his throne.
To już była zapowiedź, no.
He is the mastermind. You will be facing off of with him
Przepiękna
throughout the
animacja.
season and during the end of the season. He is our big bad evil guy.
Przepięknie zrobione.
And coming
Świetna gra
along
światłem,
with him
świetne
are
cienie.
his lieutenants, the Bloodseekers.
Świetne
the Bloodseekers.
oświetlenie.
So Bloodseekers are really cool. So Bloodseekers are a new idea in season 2, and the concept here is that like as the player has been is sort of protected a little bit by Lilith's blood in this way, that they're not able to be controlled by Lord Zir after they contract vampirism under his in his forces. There are other heroes who've gone out there that don't have that same level of
To
protection.
są pewnie
Who've gone
skiny
out
z
there
Battle Passa,
trying to
kurwa.
stop Lord Zir, trying to stop the vampiric advances. And they have fallen victim to the blood cults and to Lord Zir's forces that way. And for those characters, now you've got vampiric sorceresses, you've got vampiric barbarians, you've got these bloodseekers out there looking to
Nie,
kill
czy to są przeciwnicy?
So as you're progressing through, you'll be dealing with enemy rogues, you'll be dealing with enemy druids and necromancers. As
Ja
you're playing,
pierdolę.
and dealing with their specific like spells. and
Oni
things
dodali
that be
nowych
created
przeciwników?
for players to interact with.
I to są postacie normalnie zreskinowane, z którymi będziesz walczył? Nowymi modelami przeciwników są zreskinowane modele postaci głównych?
They'll be able to use to basically upgrade powers that you already have, your vampiric powers, and unlock new ones.
To już większego śmieciarstwa nie można było wymyśleć do gry z takim budżetem. AAA widzowie, kurwa, AAA. To są kosmetyki wreszcie, czy co, kurwa?
And they can jump you too, right? So like we make sure like, Bloodseekers are you'll find them in the world, particularly like in
No patrz,
Blood
you'll
Harvest.
find them in the world.
I keep saying we'll talk about things in a minute, but there are lots of chances to get them to fight them in Blood Harvest. But you can also find them in dungeons and stuff too, right?
Yeah, so you can see them in the overworld.
Nie, są
but they will
przeciwnicy.
also invade you in dungeons, so don't let them catch you slipping. They will be all over, finding you when you least expect it.
Yeah. So you just, as you're passing through a dungeon, you will have a barbarian jump on
Fajny
you,
update, widzowie.
they'll be all trying to slow you down, right, and causing problems.
Nadali kolorowe
Very fun.
tekstury na istniejące modele.
A lot of new enemy types as part of the new season.
New enemy
So then,
types.
I guess next thing is, it finally is time to talk about Blood Harvest. Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned before that Lord Zir is taking over Sanctuary, and Blood Harvest is really the way that we're representing that. Starting right at level 1, you'll find that Lord Zir's minions have taken over broad swaths of the 5 zones in
To jest mechanika tych terror zone'ów, które już były w grze.
Filled with like his minions out there.
Czyli wzięli mechanikę, która nie działała i ją wstawili na drugi sezon.
There's that emergency alert.
That emergency alert we talked about.
There we go. Now everyone gets
Poczekajcie, bo tam jest jakieś tornado chyba teraz,
and my
nie?
phone as well.
So while these events are active, or rather these activities are active, you'll find Lord Zir's
Co tam się dzieje
armies
teraz? Jest
marching
jakieś
across
trzęsienie ziemi,
Sanctuary,
tornado?
taking people hostage, taking them prisoner, draining them
Patrz.
of blood, and just causing
Normalnie masz
havoc in these areas.
terror
Now
zony.
there's, like new propping and there's new creatures.
I masz
There's lots of things to
regiony
to do
w
as you're
mapie,
kind
na
of
którym
going
ci
through
się
this.
będą pojawiały nowe moby, które naturalnie tam nie występują. To jest mechanika, która jest w tej grze od samego początku i oni sprzedają drugi sezon za pomocą tej mechaniki. A mobów to też jest kurwa 10. Helltide, no, to się nazywa.
But also, while these events are active, there's always a blood harvest active across Sanctuary at any given time. Like, when a blood harvest ends in one location somewhere in Sanctuary, a new one's going to pop up as Lord Zir's forces now move to a new location. And one of the cool things about Blood Harvest that's a little bit different than things like Helltide is that as you're kind of going through and playing, you're going to be
Nie dziwię się, że oni to tak balansują, jak kurwa tworzą buildy, które nie potrafią mobów zabić.
Which bloodlures that you'll be able to use to basically like bait bloodseekers to come to you, to be able to fight packs of them as time goes on. And you're also going to be earning these vampiric keys you can use to open like prisoners like cuffs, to be able to open.
Podoba mi się to, że wszystkie najciekawsze rzeczy w Diablo 4 są związane z Diablo 3 i te lasery takie z Mario.
These don't disappear at the end of a blood harvest. So as you collect them, they stay
Patrz,
with
ile on
you
jednego
from that
moba
point
bije,
forward.
kurwa.
So there's not limited progress in that way. Yeah, here's an example of a player going and
Używasz tego? Się pojawiają moby. Zajebiście, 2 moby się widzę pojawiły. Ale kurwa essa.
But the so that's a couple differences.
Ale
And the other
sieczka na
is there's
ekranie
actually
potężna.
another new feature that we're adding in season 2, which we're calling right here. It's called Hunter's Acclaim.
Chyba odpalamy Diablo 4
And
zara.
as you do things in the Blood Harvest area, as you're killing Bloodseekers, as you are freeing prisoners, as you're completing new Blood Harvest themed whispers that are also going to be active in those areas, you're going to be earning Hunter's Acclaim that will allow you to
Ja
basically
pierdolę,
go and
przecież
earn
to
a
jak z
number of other
mobilki
rewards.
wygląda ekran.
Some of the vampiric powers that you want to unlock through
Czyli
your character
przedmioty
are
nie
available
lecą,
through the
tylko
system.
będziesz teraz wyciągał sobie kurwa za rewardy z jakichś questów. Co jest kurwa? Czy oni serio myślą, że to jest problem? Czy oni serio robią te same rozwiązania, które zjebały całkowicie Diablo 3, czyli gwarantowane sety, to teraz będziesz miał gwarantowane legendy do wyciągania za zrobienie rewardów? No przecież oni, to jest dokładnie to samo, co ja mówiłem. Oni używają mechanik, które zabiły Diablo 3 do naprawy Diablo 4. Oni totalnie nie mają pojęcia, co nie wypaliło w Diablo 3.
Some other components to it that actually are beyond even just like seasonal stuff. Like, and I know people may have seen in the video the discussion that we quickly brought up like before the stream actually started, which was about the new bosses that are being added in. Can you guys kind of walk through like what the new endgame boss system is going to be for players that do want to kind of experience that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right that first and
Przejdziesz
foremost,
stworzyć produkt tak chujowy, że więcej osób ogląda twoje panele i kręci z ciebie bekę, niż gra w twoją grę?
But there's actually, I think I have a handy dandy chart, a very designery chart to help players understand kind of what we're talking about here. So what you see here is the way that we kind of look at the content progression of Diablo 4, the way the players are playing through the experience, the sorts of activities they engage with as they play.
Zrobili mapę.
Yeah, pre-season.
Progress boarda.
So yeah, you can think of it in that way. Our one
Dzięki Toku.
Obviously, you're leveling up initially. Maybe you're doing the campaign for the first time, progressing through. Eventually, get out of World Tiers 1, 2, and get into World Tier 3 after you finish the capstone. Here, you get to do, you have higher level whispers to do. You get exposed to Nightmare Dungeons for the first time. You get exposed to Helltide for the first time. World boss get a little bit tougher.
To nie nic nowego.
Tougher. We're making some changes there as well. And then eventually you get into World Tier 4. Now you're getting your ancestral items, and you continue to move on through Nightmare Dungeons, and you continue on through Helltide until eventually you go and you confront Echo of Lilith, potentially, if that's one of your goals for yourself, and you try to take her out. So that's kind of like what we had in place.
Dzięki Serofox za Primika.
But that's like what the end game sort of looks like. It's a lot of Nightmare Dungeons, a lot of Helltide, right? And we've heard a lot of feedback from players, and also from our experiences playing the game. That players are looking for more milestones, they're looking for more goals, they're looking for more like.
Nie pierdolcie, że dodadzą World Tier 5 i stwierdzą, że to naprawią.
Some big changes we're making as part of the Season of Blood, and we can show that. Here. So now, when the player gets into World Tier 3, there's 2 new bosses for them, or 1 returning boss for them to go and engage with.
2 nowych bossów, ale jeden jest reskinem.
Our good boy Varshan that everybody loves is going to be back in Season 2 for players to be able to hunt down in order to kill, to get various craft materials they can use to
ale patrzcie, jest Echo Varshan.
Uniques that only drop from
Grigor.
So every one of the bosses that we add as part of the is going to have their own distinct loot list associated with
Duriel King of Maggots
items, and there are some cosmetic rewards as well that we'll be able to talk about in a little bit. So that's a reason why you're going to want to go hunt each of these down. Now on this board here, you can see that I kind of like connect the dots in terms of where these things come from. So if you want to go hunt Varshan, you need to go complete Whispers. There's chances for you to find like malignant creatures as you're completing Whispers in the overworld.
Trzeba whispersy robić, żeby odblokować tego bossa. Kto będzie się pierdolił na poziomie 50, żeby zrobić whispersy, żeby odblokować bossa na World Tier 3? Zamiast się po prostu przeraszować do World Tier 4.
Because in the Season of Blood, there are new layers that have been added around the world.
Ja pierdoli, dodali coś, ale musieli to oczywiście zamknąć za jakimś zjebanym systemem.
So right there, there's an entrance down in where you're able to fight some awesome malignant creatures. No malignant hearts dropping, but malignant creatures certainly down there. And at the end of that small dungeon, you're able to go and basically throw these materials into this new brazier that we've added to be able to summon Varshan back from the dead to fight him for the special loot that he has. Now, one of the new creatures that we're adding is this the Galvanic Saint, which we'll show off some of the new art for some of these characters in just a moment. But this is a new, like, very lightning-themed boss that players will
Ale jest chyba nowy world boss, Lord Zer.
Helltide content. They will learn Infernal Steel from opening various caches and use this as a way, as part of a new layer, to go and summon the Galvanic Saint and deal with his lightning-themed attacks. And that's actually something that might be worth pointing out. While we're not talking about the elemental resistance changes until next week when Adam comes back with Charles and they talk about all the class changes and itemization updates that are happening as part of the season, it's worth pointing out that several of the bosses.
Wiecie, co jest w tym wszystkim najśmieszniejsze? Ja wam powiem. Obserwujcie teraz obrońców Diablo 4, jak będą mówili, że to są świetne zmiany. Tylko pamiętajcie o tym, że oni wcześniej strasznie śmiali się z tego, że farmienie tych samych bossów w Diablo 2 to jest idiotyzm i nie ma nic gorszego niż farmienie Mefa, Dariel Bala i Diablo w kółko. Kurwa, serio. Zauważcie, że oni zaczynają dodawać rzeczy, które działały w poprzednich częściach, czyli farmienie konkretnych bossów, target farming tak zwany. I teraz przyglądnijcie się, jak ludzie, którzy mówili, że te pomysły są idiotyczne, będą próbowali chronić Diablo i mówić, że to są dobre pomysły, bo to są dobre zmiany. Tylko że w momencie, gdy my je proponowaliśmy, to mówili, że to jest idiotyczne i że Diablo tego 4 nie potrzebuje. No pewnie, że target farming jest dobrym rozwiązaniem. Mówię tylko w aspekcie tego, że bardzo dużo osób broniących Diablo 4 mówiło, że to jest bardzo złe rozwiązanie i że nikt tego nie chce robić poza ludźmi, którzy speedrunują Diablo 2.
Low chance. There's already a low chance. So what does that mean for a player for Uber Uniques now with this?
That's a great question. You will absolutely know people that have Uber Uniques after this goes live, and there's a way for you to farm them specifically from going after Duriel.
Ale tu target farming nie zadziała. To jest zbyt mało ciekawych przedmiotów wizowe.
Get an Uber Unique item. They are still very rare relative to other item types. But it's not like it was in the past.
Pochujcie item kurwa target farming w grze, gdzie masz 15 unikalnych przedmiotów.
You have a way to hunt for these, right? In this world. So that's a really big push as part of the new seasonal program. Now, there are the two other bosses that I didn't talk about too much. The first is the Beast in Ice. So the Beast in Ice is a new boss that you can go and summon after you start completing Nightmare Dungeons higher than Tier 30. So Tier 31 plus Nightmare Dungeons, 85-ish monsters and so on from there. As you fight and complete these Nightmare Dungeons, there's chances for the components that you need to drop at the end of the Nightmare Dungeon you'll be able to use to make a new special Nightmare Dungeon key that explicitly brings you to the Beast in Ice's lair. So that is the way to summon forth the Beast in Ice and fight them in combat to get their special loot. And they've got some really potent items as well. And then lastly, for the new boss we're adding with the season, is we talked about Lord Zir already. While you will be able to confront like a story version of Lord Zir as you go through the quest line in World Tiers 1 and 2, there is a much more difficult, challenging version of Lord Zir that you'll fight in World Tier 4.
Ej, spytajcie się MKRR, czy mu się podoba ta zmiana, błagam.
Lord Zir this way, as you kill world bosses in Season 4 and as you kill, in Season 2 rather, Season 4. As you kill world bosses, yeah, I know, I really am. As you kill world bosses in World Tier 4, and as you complete Legion events in World Tier 4, you'll be able to gather
teraz ciężki ten.
And bring them to go and summon Lord Zir.
Jest ciężka sytuacja, bo nie wiadomo, czy to pochwalić, że fajne zmiany i zostać hipokrytą, czy zjebać te zmiany.
You see Grigwar summoning in for the first time. Very excited for players to go and do that fight. The Beast in Ice in his new lair.
Są skiny, kurwa, istniejące.
Yeah, it's super gross. Very
Są
fun.
wszystko, kurwa.
So yeah, these three we
Czy to pierwszy to nie jest reskin bossa z pierwszego aktu?
We don't want to show off the boss fight just yet, but you'll get a chance to go and obviously fight a version of him in the quest line and a much more difficult version of him later.
A to drugie? To drugie jest chyba nowe.
Calling out as part of this, the materials that players are going to be collecting to use to summon forth these bosses. There's a couple advantages.
Aha, to środkowe jest Immortala.
You can farm these components up together and use that as a way to more quickly access these fights and get more chances and opportunities to get some loot off these bosses that you're looking for. But you can also trade these materials between players as well. So if you've got half the things you might need to summon Varshan, but you don't have the other half, you can go on trade chat and try to find the remaining components spend the gold necessary to like maybe exchange for those things, and then go more quickly summon the bosses that you need. And also, as you collect these materials, you realize you may have overfarmed the materials that you need to summon, and you got the items you're really looking for early enough. Now you have a chance to like go and take those and maybe sell those off, to make a tidy profit for yourself, so you can have an easier time enchanting items and other things as you go.
Exactly. Make friends.
Yeah, make friends for sure.
Ale co będzie kurwa walutą tradowania tych przedmiotów? Gold? Po chuj ci gold w tej grze? Co jest do chuja z nimi nie tak? Co ci z tego, że możesz nafarmić kurwa klucze do wejściówki na bossów? Jak chcesz za sprzedawanie czegoś, chcesz dostawać walutę, chcesz dostawać przedmioty, chcesz dostawać currency. A tu co dostaniesz? Golda kurwa ci ludzie dadzą? No przecież unikaty są kurwa account bound. To jedyne co możesz robić to wymieniać klucze na klucze, kurwa, w tradzie. To już równie dobrze można byłoby dać mechanikę przytapiania tych kluczy, kurwa, u NPC-a. No po chuj ci zajebisty skill, korona, kurwa. Dzięki, Lukas, za 9. miesiąc suba.
Duriel has the opportunity of dropping Uber uniques, and yes, you will find people and know people that
mamy unikaty i dostajemy teraz Uber unikaty. Zajebiście. Dostajemy kurwa kolejny plaster. Dostajemy kolejny element wyższego poziomu. W Diablo 3 były ancestrale, były primale, primal ancestrale, kurwa, przedmioty twojego starego najebanego. I w Diablo 4 dokładnie jest to samo. Mamy sakredy, mamy ancestrale, będą Uber, kurwa, unikaty. Ja pierdolę. Potem będą Uber Primal, kurwa, będą Uber Sacred Ancestral. Chłopie jak w Metinie, nie? Dodawanie jednego przymiotnika i jest co.
We're also talking about unique item updates. In fact, nearly every unique item is getting some sort of update in Diablo 4, and we're actually going to be talking more about that on the 10th. So these unique items are obviously going to be, big things to actually kind of hunt for players when they are fighting these specific bosses. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about today. We'll have more to talk about on the 10th, and of course we're also going to be talking about resistances more on the 10th with Adam Jackson and some of the damage bucket changes. Like I know we have like crit, vulnerable, and overpower damage that's also getting kind of.
No, będzie Uber Insane Shaco plus 18. Które jeszcze ulepszyć sobie na 5 gwiazdek, wstawić 2 gemy, transmoga i kurwa 3 pieczęcie kieliszków.
Which is a huge list that we actually do have. So it's going to take us be prepared. We got a lot of slides and a lot to discuss here, but we do want to kind of jump right into them so we can kind of get through all of them for sure. And a lot of this, and I do want to like preface, a lot of this is based off of things we've heard within the community feedback, and also just changes that we most definitely wanted to make.
Scroll of escape is now consumed if a hardcore player disconnects while in combat, teleporting them to save location. To ludzie będą robili quit-out makrosy. Kurwa głupki. Normalnie teraz na hardkorze jak umierasz, to walisz disconnecta. Będziesz sobie robił kurwa makro na disconnecta.
Those are also new cosmetics that are exclusive to you can get from
that's correct. These are exclusively dropped from the various bosses that we're talking about in Season 2.
Więc masz scroll of escape i scroll of escape się kastuje, nie?
When we say eternal and seasonal, we mean that these are going to persist. Persist beyond Season 2.
That's correct. Yeah, these bosses aren't going to go away at the end of the season. We want to
a teraz zamiast kastować będziesz sobie robił, w PoE coś robi. Kurwa to samo, jest idiotyczne. W chuj ludzi to robi, w chuj ludzi tego nie robi. Po chuj grać na hardkorze, jak czegoś takiego się używa. To, że coś jest w PoE, to nie znaczy, że to jest dobre, kurwa.
Alright, let's talk about Scrolls of Escape. It's been a little while coming, but Scrolls of Escape will now be consumed automatically if you disconnect.
Bulik, wiesz co? No musiał nie przyjść, nie?
Because this is a consumable item.
Wydaje mi się, że ci zablokował to bank jeszcze, bo to idzie przez PayPala, nie?
Where people are, disconnecting on purpose, you're still going to consume that item. So we feel very good about.
Ale dzięki, zaraz zobaczymy, może wejdzie z opóźnieniem. Bo PayPalem musisz wysłać, nie?
Never fun.
Incenses, which are the party-wide version of elixirs, of course. will now grant a bonus to experience, and they will persist through death. So it'll be more useful. Now
Yes,
this is
now grant
this is a
bonus
big one.
experience. Okay.
We
They
have a
persist
bunch of
after
different experience changes that we're going to go over here. You're going to see a few different references to different
Aha, będzie
experience
się szybciej
changes.
expić.
One of the things, and if you're playing Season 1, you'll notice that we did make some adjustments to experience in Season 1 as well. That's sort of, all this
To
is
nic
sort
nie
of
jest
coming
zasłonięte.
together with some changes to how experience is calculated in terms of which things are multiplicative. So the way this will work is, in general, you've got different kinds of experience bonuses. So you've got maybe a bonus from incenses that we just added, for example. You've got other experience bonuses maybe from seasonal blessings. These are going to add together in a bucket and then be multiplicative with your world tier bonus. This means that these experience bonuses will be much more impactful in Season 2
Będzie jak
than
na
they were in
OTS-ach
Season 1. In
TV.
fact,
Co kurwa kolejną edycję wyższy
cumulatively,
exp.
as I said, there are a number of different experience bonuses here.
Zajebiście.
And cumulatively, your time, compared to Season 1, your time to get to level 100 is going to be 40% faster.
Czy ignorujemy to, że obraz na prezentacji
Than it
ma
was in Season 1. Yeah, in Season 2.
tak dobrą
This is,
rozdzielczość, że można policzyć pojedyncze piksele? Tak.
Well,
no, bez kitu.
we found that
Przepięknie zrobiona prezentacja tutaj.
We just talked about all of
Piękne
the boss
fragmenty.
changes that add more content to do as you're leveling up. We also want players to be able to get to level 100. It's a goal that many players set for themselves, and it should be an achievable goal. And so in Season 1, we saw that there were some players who were getting frustrated. You maybe get to level 75, and you're like, I want there to be more things to do, and this is like, just feels like it kind of slows down. And we really wanted to smooth that over and make the process of reaching that goal and getting to the end of the season journey feel like an achievable goal for all our players who invest time in the season. And of course, along the way, you're going to be having a lot more cool stuff to do with all of the boss ladder stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, these good changes. I'm very excited about this.
So, as I said, we'll talk more about other changes to experience as we go through this. But moving on for the moment, when you skip the campaign to jump into the world,
wiecie co? Idąc z tym tokiem rozumowania, oni niedługo będziesz tworzył postać na następnym levelu już, nie? Ta gra jest tak zjebana, że oni zaczynają od niej odejmować kurwa wcześniej ustalony gameplay.
Key strategic waypoints that are related to places that you want to go and are centrally located.
Yeah, make it a little bit easier to get around to like whispers that are in rotation as you're like leveling up.
Albo boostery, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some other changes. There's kind of a suite of changes. You know, I was just talking about a number of changes to experience. There's also a suite of changes to sort of town efficiency, and this is the first one we're going to talk about some more in a little bit.
Renowned rewards.
I know this is one that's close to Joe's heart in particular. Renowned rewards will now persist between seasons. So what this means is that when you create a new character in a season, you can still earn renown, you can still do side quests if that's something that you enjoy doing.
Obudzili się w drugim sezonie, że renown jest do wyjebania.
Strongholds, you can do all of those content types, but all of the rewards that
Tylko, że teraz tego renowna musisz przynajmniej raz zrobić. Musisz iść do kamieniołomu, ale tylko raz,
You're not going to have
stary.
to log in on a different character or anything. Like any reward that you've claimed, if you claimed it in pre-season, on Eternal, in Season 1, on any character,
Po chuj
you're
gra
have that reward
sezonami, w której jest progres przedsezonowy. To jest tak głupie.
In Season 2, and this applies to all of those obols. It applies to skill points, potion upgrades, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's just nice to be able to start a new character and not feel like you have to go do every single side quest over again to get all the stuff.
Yeah, you know, and this is something that's this is a really good point, Antonio, because when we are talking about these general improvements, what these came from is a lot like us, the dev team, playing the game, and I think Joe mentioned this before, but it's really important, playing the game and then reading feedback from players, feedback on social, feedback from videos, everything.
Nie wszystko można zrobić w jeden dzień, no i
what are
widzisz,
players asking for? Where are there places where we can make the game more fun? Because, you know, we talked back in Season 1, like, our goal is to continue making the game
są
more
niesamowite
fun for
zmiany
players, right?
sezonowe.
So this is really sort of the result of
To
that.
są zmiany sezonowe, które były wiadome od day
I
one.
think players have more choices when they are able to log into their seasonal character right away and not feel like they've got this this oppressive goal of needing to completely fill out their renown in order to play optimally for the season.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be really, really healthy and good for the experience. I'm really excited for players to be able to just be able to carry these things over with their characters. Now, you're not going to need to log in like you did last time when we made changes in the past. Now, like after you've claimed these rewards in a previous character, there's going to have some.
Rar, dzięki za Prime'a.
And
Oni generalnie teraz siedzą i tłumaczą, dlaczego systemy stworzone przez nich wcześniej były idiotyczne.
let's go to the next bullet.
Overworld monsters in the World Till 3 and World Till 4 no longer trail the player level after levels 55 and 75.
Match your player level in World Tiers 3 and 4. I know that this is a
Skalowanie świata wypierdalają. Świat się skaluje do pewnego momentu.
Challenges with the game not feeling like you were getting upgrades that really felt powerful, and players rightly called that out.
Kolejny argument Diablo 4 obrońców pada, że skalowanie świata jest fajne. Jezu, ile jest amunicji. No jest. Zdrówka widzowie, za kurwa triumf. Wasze zdrowie. Zdrowie wszystkich wariatów, którzy lajkowali te filmy, którzy komentowali te filmy, którzy przychodzili na te streamy i wiedzieli, kto ma rację. Wasze zdrowie.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more later on.
Essa fiutessa.
At the end of season 1,
2 sloty na postacie nowe, wow.
Season 1 character is going to migrate to the Eternal Realm, and so we've added 2 additional character slots to make sure that you have plenty of space.
Tak, na świecie jest 8 milionów ludzi. Essa wariacie.
When
Choco
characters
bombs.
are migrating from season 1 to Eternal Realm, we actually have all that information that's going to be posted immediately after this live stream. We have a
Jak ten mój materiał, co jest nie tak z Diablo 4 się świetnie zestarzał. Kurwa mać. Oni może oglądają moje materiały, kurwa. Najlepsze, co Blizzard mógłby teraz zrobić, to zatrudnić tłumacza, kurwa, z polskiego na angielski i pooglądać moje materiały, nie? Widzicie? Jeden śmieszny chłopiec z Transylwanii w trakcie bety wymyślił więcej niż kurwa cała korporacja w pół roku.
First up, the occultist is now set up by the Tree of Whispers. So when you go back to Whispers,
ja pierdolę. Podeśle mi ktoś adres Blizzarda, to im fakturę wystawię. Wystawię im zaraz fakturę na $1 million. $1 million, kurwa, mi wisisz.
This is the first of those changes. So any small town with a waypoint attached to it, it's going to have a stash near it as well now. So just more opportunities to drop things off or pick things up as you're out there playing, either while you're leveling up a character from 1 to 50 and you just are finding things you want to drop off.
Stasze są w mniejszych miastach dodane. Dodatkowe stasze w dużych miastach.
And then, additionally,
3100 Ocean Park Boulevard, Santa Monica, California, 90405.
I think we have video for this
US fucking A.
We'll get to that in just a second, I think. But yeah, we've had more stashes.
Zaraz wystawiam fakturę na $1 million.
Of course, purveyors of curiosities. These lovable rogues, really.
Wiecie co, mi się wydaje, że w Blizzardzie jest taki zajeb, że jakbym im wystawił fakturę na 10 koła dolków, to by ją normalnie płacili, nie?
We're bringing them closer to the waypoints. We're reacclimating them to society, reintroducing them to the world.
Tam nikt by pytań nie zadawał.
Easier to reach, as you can see here, for Kiovashad, like the purveyor of curiosity.
Muszę pomyśleć o tym. No jeden chłop tak właśnie Facebookowi czy Microsoftowi wystawił fakturę i mu normalnie opłacili.
You'll get more gear as you're playing.
The purveyor has become more social.
To da się wymyślić w tydzień przez jedną osobę? Kurwa, to co oni tu gadają, to się da wymyślić w jeden stream, kurwa. 4 godziny da się więcej wymyślić zmian niż oni.
Yeah, the law is a rough construct in many ways in Sanctuary. So in this way that they're back in the good graces.
And I know because we've heard from players like, hey, spending time, they spend a lot of time.
Wiecie co? Umiejscowienie stasza w mieście jest naprawdę jednym z najmniejszych problemów tej gry. Oni chyba zrozumieli, że my chcieliśmy więcej staszy w skrzynce, a nie więcej skrzynek z tym samym staszem. Źle to zrozumieli, no. Chcieliście kurwa stasze? No to dostaliście więcej skrzynek w miastach, essa.
Alright, cool. So I think that's I think that's about it for towns and vendors. There's any more stuff to talk about.
Yes.
Want to talk about mounts?
Yes, we should talk about mounts. This was something that we talked about before. This is something that Mr. Joe Shelley had posted on the platform known as X, formerly known as Twitter.
Did he make a post on
He made
X?
a post, not a tweet.
Not a tweet. That's
a post.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of people ask about this ever since that post, and we mentioned that it would be something that's coming in season 2. So do you want to go through all our changes coming from mounts?
Yeah, let's take a look at them. The first off, there are a number of changes to mounts, but
mounty będą bardziej
the one
responsywne.
that players
Ej, widzowie, oni day one patch wydają. Blizzard po prostu jest giga progresywny i po 3 miesiącach wydaje day one patch.
In a tight corner, or you're trying to navigate through a narrow space, the mount is going
To jest day 100
much
patch.
less frequently come to a dead stop or slow down dramatically. And part of that as well is mounts can jump over regular jump traversals just like your player, but we're a little bit finicky about it.
They were very finicky.
I think some people didn't. In practice, they didn't always. They were a little bit too scared of jumping over traversals. So we fixed that. It's much more smooth now, so a lot less dismounting as you're traveling around the world.
Ale super.
And we also increased the base
14% zwiększony
movement speed of mounts. This means that traveling on your mount in town, for example, will be faster. We didn't increase the top speed of the boost, so the maximum boost speed is still the same, but your base movement speed unboosted is going to be 14%.
Yes!
We also made a change.
Niszczy barykady. Jak użyjesz spacji na maucie, to wreszcie zniszczy barykadę.
I think it's like a very cool system for allowing the mount to have analog control with the mouse and keyboard.
Blizzard stworzył problem i go naprawił.
It was sort of finicky. You really had to have the mouse cursor at the edge of the screen to get full speed. And if you had a little bit farther away, you kind of felt like, well, am I actually at full speed?
Pewnie. Jutro wlatuje Deathless Run na YouTube, a będą też Soulsy 2, 3, Bloodborne, Demon's Souls z playthroughem.
And so we made a change here. We didn't remove. Some players have suggested let's just make it binary. I should be at full speed all the time. But we made a change that makes it. The cursor is much more generous about allowing you to be at full speed.
Kurwa, nie no, widzowie, nie ma co hejtować. To jest dobra zmiana. Śmieszne, w jakim czasie ona wychodzi.
Beyond that, it'll be at full speed. And so you really have to have the cursor close to your mount. If you do want to slow down.
Tutaj jest naprawdę mowa o dobrych zmianach. No wreszcie nie musisz schodzić z mounta, żeby zniszczyć barykadę. Ale no trochę jest za późno. Gra już jest martwa, nikt się już tym nie interesuje.
It's easier to reach that top speed. You don't have to have the mouse as far away and be planning your path at the very edge of the screen constantly. It's just generally not how people play and when they're moving in the game.
Czy planuje walkthrough z Sekiro? Kurwa, pronto.
So yeah. Feels really good.
I think between the faster mount and moving the important things closer to the waypoint, that is the 40%.
That's the 40%.
That is 41%. Those experience changes are massive. So.
This is just additive to it.
But I think it's a great point because as Adam was saying as well, like town efficiency is also something that players care a lot about, right? So I mentioned the speed, the spur. This is your speed boost on the mount.
Widzowie, jak pytacie, kiedy jakaś gra, wykrzyknik kiedy.
Rate at which you you acquire spur charges is the same, so that means that with the increased duration, you're going to be able to boost it a lot.
Będziemy się szybciej w mieście.
Maybe more spur uptime.
Yeah, quite. It's close to 100%. I think it's pretty. It's pretty significant.
Yep.
And of course, this is great because those pesky barricades that would previously cause your mount to stop can be broken through. So
dobra, ja zadam jedno pytanie. Po chuj są w ogóle te barykady w tej grze? Nie byłoby prościej wyjebać te barykady w pizdu i tyle pierwszego dnia? Po chuj one po prostu istnieją w tej grze.
So you can see the player boosting through the barricade there. You also see the player using their dismount skill, and we have some changes related to that as well. So some cooldown changes.
Oh yeah, these are really big.
So I, as
Cooldowny na
I
mouse
posted
zmniejszone.
about this on social media, and one of the things that
Spocony wujek,
experimenting
dzięki za
with
drugi
is
miesiąc
having
suba.
the mount cooldown reset after you take a traversal, because of course you get off your mount, you take a traversal, and then there's like a cooldown before you can mount again. It just feels sort of
Kolejna
arbitrary,
dobra
like,
zmiana.
why that's like slowing down
Pytanie,
the
czy
game,
wystarczająca?
right?
Odpowiedź nie.
So we tested that in practice, and we found that while it was cool, what was even better is just reducing the base cooldown of
Dzięki Versal za kontynuowanie
across the
suba.
board. So mount cooldown goes down from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. If you're taking a lot of damage while you're mounted and you get knocked off your horse, the cooldown for getting back on the horse also halved from 30 seconds to 15. And as I mentioned, the dismount combat skill, like this is a really cool skill. We want it to feel like players can use it and feel powerful. So this is actually the cool up on it. When you jump onto your mount, there's a few seconds before you can use it, and 10 seconds felt way too long, so we reduced it to 3.
Yeah, it's much more fun to like just get on your mount, and if you see a pack of creatures that you need for a quest or for a whisper or anything else, be able to just disengage right into them, you know, and start the fight right away, as opposed to having to like wait. You just end up not using
I would make circles around attacks, you know,
if you have like 2 seconds left or something.
So wait, hold on, monsters. I'm going to do this cool ability.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Wait, give me a little bit.
Just wait, it's happening. I promise. Yeah. So.
Yeah, very cinematic, but not as fun.
Awesome. So I know now.
Ale przejście zajebiste.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Production behind the scenes,
Kurwa.
by the way, guys.
Yeah,
is
honestly.
they're just smiling.
Jakie
They make these,
zajebiste.
like, crazy swipes.
Jak robiłem
between
w
transitions.
PowerPoincie,
But,
w PowerPoincie, kurwa.
We are now going to talk about
W trzeciej klasie podstawówki prezentacji takie przejścia wpierdalałem.
Yes. So we, Antonio, I know, can kind of take us through all our changes here.
Nice.
Finally, this is what I'm here for.
This is the moment.
This is
Antonio,
what I work on. So
Wow! Jest
yeah, we have
zmiana.
tons of
Patrz.
changes for
Teleportowanie się do Nightmare Dungeonu nagle cię nie teleportuje przed dungeon, tylko do dungeonu.
Is teleporting
Ale
to a
fajna
nightmare
zmiana.
dungeon from the map will take the players directly inside the dungeon instead of to the dungeon entrance. This will cut down
Jak oni na
on
to
having
wpadli?
the double load screens when you just want to go and play
Transitions.
more, like grind more nightmare dungeons and get your Paragon points up. I think this is a pretty, like, this will be a pretty popular change. I think this is something that people have wanted for a while.
No,
ever since we
niesamowite,
first
że na to
implemented
wpadli.
teleporting to nightmare dungeons.
Yeah, getting rid of this extra load screen, I think is going to be a huge boon for me. So I'm supportive.
A czemu to cię od razu nie tepa do dungeonu, tylko musisz to wybrać z mapy? To nadal jest do poprawy.
What is our software thing that we use? VMix. People are
Dungeon
claiming we're
events
doing this in
monsters
PowerPoint.
density
It's
increase.
actually through VMix. So credit to the. There you go. We could have gone the easy way out and done PowerPoint, but no. All right, sorry for interrupting. There you go.
Moving on, back to Nightmare Dungeons. So our dungeon events have more monster density now. And also, more importantly, in higher world tiers, your NPCs will no longer get one shot. So they will not be completely useless, or the events won't be hopeless when you're trying to defend someone from an onslaught of monsters.
Yeah, in general, I think this is going to be great for just increasing the perceived efficiency of dungeon events across the board.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's pretty like, you know, my friends and I are like, oh, okay, well, you know, your friends and you are going to be okay. Like, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah, we're looking at dungeon events a lot just between the seasons and player feedback to make sure that they're fun to play and people want to engage with them. And this is kind of one of those things that we saw. We're like, yeah, we could do this.
Yeah.
Jezu, kurwa, zasnę zaraz, nie? Takie nudy, że chuj.
Yeah, so next we have traps. In our dungeons, the overall readability has been improved, and the crowd control on the player has been reduced. Look at that slow motion.
Slow motion action shot.
So it will be easier to see these, and more importantly, when you do get hit by them, you are not CC'd long enough to where you will just instantly die all the time.
Yeah, and I want to call this out so players. I want to make sure players are not confused about this. We're not just talking about CC on the traps, right?
Right. We're talking about just CC across the board from monsters. Just in general, like your CC.
CC z mobów wywalają.
Yeah.
W sensie redukują mocno.
If I get stunned by a vampire knight, spend less time CC'd.
Czyli naprawdę będą puszczać jeden klip w kółko 20 razy, aż kurwa ktoś wylewu dostanie od tego. Do chuja, ja jestem śmiesznym youtuberem z 40 tysiącami subskrypcji i kurwa mam wyższy production value, jak o czymś mówię do chuja. I nie wrzucam jednej rzeczy w kółko 20 razy, bo przecież idzie dostać kurwa ataku epilepsji od tego.
Yeah, very cool.
All right.
What else we got?
Quality footage.
Yeah, I know. I do love this footage.
I can't get enough of it.
Yep. Oh, fragments. Interesting. What those are.
And also, our Paragon glyph experience has been increased.
Wszystko dostaje buffy na
This sort of falls in line with like the 40%
ja pierdolę.
faster leveling to
Oni nie
100.
czają
You
z
also
problemem
will
tej gry, nie?
your Paragon glyph leveled a bit faster so that as you are leveling up, your Paragon scales effectively with it.
Widzowie, to w dużym skrócie Diablo 4 będzie tą samą chujnią, ale będziesz szybciej tej chujni doświadczał.
Oh no, wait, there's a whole other section.
No, there's more stuff.
Oh, okay, well then sure.
You can't have nightmare dungeons without the afflictions.
Close monsters attacks from behind cause you to become vulnerable.
A number of changes to some of our afflictions. We are constantly like looking at these and evaluating player feedback. The first one up that I have to talk about is backstabbers.
Będą moby, które zadają więcej obrażeń w plecy, kurwa.
Attacked you from behind, it just did a set increase in damage.
Przecież to jest zabójstwo mele klas do kurwy nędzy, które stoją w ogniu walki.
Change this so that the close monsters attacks from behind will now cause you to become vulnerable, and then that vulnerable damage is
jakie głupie, kurwa.
Increased on a scaling metric. So the higher the dungeon tier, the more damage that you will take. This gives you a little bit more opportunity to have a bit of counterplay. It's not just all of a sudden like you're dead. You can play around this. You can react to it. If you manage to make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You can strategize and pivot so that you.
Fajny pomysł, ale nie do hack and slasha, no.
Yeah, I mean, that vulnerable
dokładnie, kurwa.
does give you that opportunity to sort of see,
to jest ostatnia rzecz, jaką ty chcesz, kurwa, o jakiej ty chcesz myśleć w hack and slashu, czy nie jesteś przypadkiem do kogoś odwrócony, kurwa, tyłem.
For monster critical resist, now the monster attacks reduce the damage of your critical strikes for 3 seconds, and then this also scales by the dungeon tier. So now if once again,
co to kurwa za statystyka critical resist? Kto wymyśla te kurwa? To są nowe afiksy na mobach.
Yeah, I mean, people would avoid this one. This affliction particularly because it was a massive reduction in damage overall because you didn't have any control over it either, right?
Oni zrozumieli, że ludzi wkurwiają healy i CC, więc stwierdzili, że dodadzą, że je zredukują, ale dodadzą więcej wkurwiających elementów, jak na przykład backstabowanie mobów i moby, które nakładają ci debuffa, który zmniejsza twoje obrażenie od kryta. Kto kurwa wymyśla te afiksy? Czy oni spisują najgorsze kurwa pomysły na afiksy i je przenoszą do gry?
Made some changes to Death Pulse. Now we prevent the death pulses from monsters that already have death explosions, like the lunatics. And we also prevent death pulses from spawning on top of each other.
Czy kurwa oni dodali do hack and slasha wybuchy kurwa mobów na śmierci? Czy oni są niedojebani? Czy ktokolwiek z nich zagrał kiedyś w Diablo 2 i kurwa wie czym są popcorny? Czy ktokolwiek kurwa z nich grał kiedyś w swoje i się wyjebał na lootboxie z Detonate on Dead?
Yep, nope, we're good.
Co za kurwa typy?
Lightning Storm.
Ej, oni dodają najgłupsze rzeczy, jakie można dodać do hack and slasha.
Movement speed for 5 seconds. This is a change coupled with the other changes where it only starts with when players are in combat and it only starts when you have a direct path to the protection bubble. These holistic changes were basically implemented to make sure that Lightning Storm doesn't slow down your Nightmare Dungeon.
Oni wymyślili najgłupsze afiksy, jakich można było.
Players wanted to get through the Nightmare Dungeons quickly, but when they had Lightning Storm, they had to like stop, run backwards, go hide in the bubble, wait, then make up that lost time, stop, go
Co to
backwards.
są za kurwa mechaniki?
The movement speed bonus helps a ton because it helps you make up that lost time faster. And then these other two changes mostly focus on some of the more egregious examples where like a traversal is in between you and the bubble and you can't get to it in time.
Co to kurwa
or
jest,
for some
stary?
reason, it's just a little too far behind you and it's difficult
Nie
to
będzie
get to.
leaderboardów, stary.
These will ensure that you know when the lightning storm is going to happen and you know there is a way to get to the bubble.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And finally, drifting shade.
Co to jest drifting shade, kurwa?
Duration of the drifting shade has decreased from 5
Ja nie wiem,
seconds
co
to
to
3
jest net,
seconds,
kurwa.
and the
Co to jest?
respawn time has increased by 2 seconds. So similarly to lightning storm, we didn't want cases where the drifting shade pops up and then players spend more of their time running circles around the drifting shade than they do focusing on completing the dungeon itself. So this should make it a little bit
Plama
easier
na
for the
ziemi, co daje
dungeons
Silas?
for you to be able to navigate the dungeons with drifting shade and not just want to avoid it completely.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. More.
Yep, more Nightmare Dungeon
More
stuff.
changes to Nightmare Dungeon.
So
Wyjebali
this
obiektywy z
is,
dungeonów.
in addition to Nightmare Dungeons, this is also for our normal dungeons, but
Oni robią...
we changed
Kurwa,
some
oni
of
się
the
sugerują tymi
objectives
zmianami.
for a
Oni
handful of
wypierdalają z gry
dungeons. You will
rzeczy,
see
których na
this
początku ludzie
in the Nightmare
bronili.
Dungeons for the season specifically, but we removed the objectives so that now when you go into the dungeon, all you have to do is really just go find the boss. You can focus
Ale
on the critical
poczekajcie,
path.
bo za każdym
There are
razem jak
dungeon
oni
events and
wywalają
other
coś
things
chujowego,
going
to
on
dodają
that
coś
are optional.
chujowszego.
But if you want to go in and find the boss, you can just go in and go straight to the boss. So we're trying out this change. We're going to see kind of how it works with the dungeons that we've implemented it on, and we're definitely keeping an eye out on player feedback to see how they like it.
I know Rax, who's watching, has a tear of joy
Znowu
sliding down
layouty
his face
zostały.
right
Przecież
now.
kurwa,
Hearing that, I'm
ja
sure.
pierdolę, przecież Ksazek tłumaczy
And
wszystkim, że są
finally,
zajebiste layouty, o
for
co
the
chodzi?
pool of
Czemu
Nightmare
są
Dungeons,
zmienione?
This season, like we do every season, we've went and evaluated the dungeon layouts and we've redesigned a number of
Ja
these. So
pierdolę.
for the ones that do have objectives, we've changed them to limit backtracking even further.
Ale najlepsze jest to, że oni już mówili,
but we
że
also wanted to be conscious
zmienili
of
te
making the
layouty, żeby
dungeons just
usunąć
feel too linear.
backtracking.
So we found a good balance where the player can engage in the objectives and the content without having to spend so much time running back and forth, which also contributes to the 40%
to jest kurwa to samo prawie.
increase to get to level 100. But as you can see here, here's one of the Nightmare Dungeons that we have for Season 2. In this first objective here, we had our
To jest kurwa,
elites that you needed to kill.
wchodzisz tu, robisz
They were
to
kind
i
of
musisz
off
się
in the wings
cofnąć,
and created
wchodzisz
these
tu,
really
robisz
bad
to i musisz się
situations where
cofnąć.
if you took a wrong
I masz
turn
wejść,
and
przecież
then
to jest
you
kurwa
realized
to samo
too late
zdjęcie do
that
chuja.
you missed one, you'd have to go all the way back and track that guy down.
Wchodzisz
and
tu,
waste a
robisz
ton of
kwadrat
time.
i się cofasz.
So
Wchodzisz
we
tu, robisz
moved
kwadrat i
these
się
objectives
cofasz.
to the critical path. So
Wchodzisz
as
na
long as
bossa
you're
i masz
just on the
bonusowy
main path,
pokój.
on the main loop, you will encounter them. And even if you do make a wrong turn, the penalty for getting back onto the critical path.
Wytłumaczy mi ktoś tą zmianę?
So it's like just less downtime. in
Przecież tutaj
between,
zamiast wejście być
reaching
tu,
these
to jest
objectives.
teraz tu, kurwa. Przecież oni przysunęli wejście.
All right. Next, we have
Tu jest wejście tu, a tu jest wejście
bunch
tu,
of
kurwa.
updates to world events.
Yeah, world events and Legion events. Things.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Let's bring it up. We have a whole other slide. I think.
There we
There
go.
it is. Yes. So yeah, we've heard feedback from players. They're looking for more uptime on some of these events. They're looking for more opportunities to go and engage with this kind of content. So we made some changes as part of Season 2. So right off the bat, Legion events time between events has been reduced from 30 minutes to 25 minutes. They're going to be more. You'll find them more frequently as you're playing. This is great because you do want to go farm these to get the materials you need to go fight Lord Zir. Particularly when you're in World Tier 4. So great opportunities for you to go and do these things. We've
Nie,
increased
no,
the
to jest
duration
day
of
one
the warning
patch,
timer.
kurwa.
Moved that from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. One of the big reasons why we did this, and we did this in a few different places, but one of the reasons we did this is in situations where the player's like wrapping up a nightmare dungeon or they're just in an instance, we want to give them a chance for them to pop out and happen to see that warning is up so they know that they can go and try to chase that down. We also fixed like some minor issues here where like Legion event pins would not display at the edge of players' minimaps if a whisper was
Słuchajcie,
active for that week.
zmieniają kurwa,
So
że
really,
wyświetlają
at the
się
moment, we
World
really want
Bossowie
players
na
to go
minimapie.
after,
Ale
the
fajnie.
Legion event.
Kurwa,
It
za
wasn't really
świetna
showing up. We
zmiana.
made the same change for World Boss.
Niesamowite, że drugi
Now, for
sezon.
World Boss spawns, you know, similarly, we made another change here. We reduced the duration between uptimes for the World Boss from 6 hours to 3.5 hours. So these are going to be much more available for players to find and chase down as they play.
Yeah, it was something
Drugi
which, you know,
sezon kolej
players have been
znowu
talking about, hey, I
reklamowany.
have a set schedule or I'm always
Naprawianie
at work
rzeczy.
when these World Boss spawns occurs, so now there's more opportunities for
Wiecie,
players
że w
to
tym
end up
wszystkim
getting,
najlepsze jest to, że ta
their
gra
chance
tak
at a
jakby
World Boss,
gameplayowo
which is
się w
really
ogóle
good.
nie zmienia, nadal jest tym
likewise, we
samym
have
gównem.
increased the warning timer
Oni
for
poprawiają
these
kilka
bosses,
rzeczy, ale
from
to
30
nadal nie
minutes to
sprawia, że
60
ta gra jest
minutes to
ciekawa do
really let you know when
grania.
they're about to start. You can go plan to go and hit these because again, these have slightly higher drops for the Lord Seer fight, for example, and they still have good rewards attached to them as well. So those are up. And then
Tą grę
we also
trzeba
made sure that there's now
gruntownie
a message
przebudować, żeby
broadcast to
była
all
ciekawa
players
do grania.
when a world boss is 15 minutes away from spawning. So again, doubling down, making sure the players are aware that the world boss is about to kick off, so you don't have those situations where you just missed it because you didn't realize it was up. So we think that these are going to be some changes that are going to help that quite a bit.
All right. End-game activities.
Yeah, let's go. I can just keep going from here. So one of the things we found in Whisper Cache is it used to be when you got into World Tier 3 and you're starting to get your first like sacred sigils and such.
Sigile zawsze są
that
minimum
when you
5
finish Whisper
leveli
Cache,
od
you're gonna get-
najwyższego
you've got
poziomu
effectively
Nightmare
the
Dungeona, który
lowest
zrobiłeś.
sigil tier,
Ta zmiana
key
totalnie nie ma
from
sensu,
that
bo
tier, from
może
that
kurwa
world tier.
w normalnej
So,
grze
now the
byłyby
way it's gonna work is
momenty,
when
w
you go
której
and you turn in all
wolałbyś
your whispers
efektywniej
and you get,
farmić
you know, your
łatwiejszego
summoning materials
zona
for Roshan, and you also get a
niż
random
farmić
sigil,
zona, który
on
jest
turn-in. That
najwyższym,
sigil is
który
always gonna
możesz
be within
obecnie
5
farmić.
levels of the highest Nightmare Dungeon you completed in that tier. So they're always going to
Nie
be more
bully.
relevant for you
Normalnie
based on your
można.
current progression as you continue to go.
Ciao,
So I think
Urquell.
that's going to be a fun change for players. The next, so I really want to hammer down this. So gold rewards from Whisper caches have
Więcej
been really
golda,
significantly
fajnie.
increased. Greatly increased, one might say.
Po chuj gold w tej grze, przecież jest kurwa bezwartościowy.
We want to very much emphasize greatly.
Urkel, dzięki
So
za
if
4.
you're
miesiąc
looking for
suba.
gold, for your build, whether you're trying to do like a massive respec of your character and you're looking for the chance to reroll many more times on an item to get exactly the affix that you're looking for, you know, Whispers end up being a really great source of gold for you to continue to farm as you get into the main song as you go. So that's it's going to be a really big change that you'll engage with as you play.
Dzięki,
And
Rejs.
then, so
Witam
next up,
je również,
so
witam
I know Joe already
ludologicznie.
talked about some of the changes we're making to experience other places. Here
Yes,
we've
więcej
also made
expa.
sure that like Whisper turn-ins, you know, for all your bounties and the Helltide caches, the XP rewards from those moments are much more substantial in this point. We're okay with the idea that that Nightmare Dungeons remain a really great source of experience for players. That's fine. But we want to make sure that Whispers and Helltide features in
Dawno
particular
się nie, ale
are
nic
brought
nie
up to be able to be
przegapiłeś.
more competitive with Nightmare Dungeons. But now that there's also the addition of these summoning materials that you need from these content types, there are also other rewards, and then even gold from Whispers. There's other rewards you're going to be getting at the same time. So while experience from Whispers is really dramatically increased, be really great, particularly on the 1 to 50, as you want to use more Whispers potentially to level up than you have in the past. You know, there are advantages, no matter which way you want to go.
Ja lubię, jak oni dużo dodają
And then,
narracji do
some
tego.
minor things here. So Whisper caches, we're granting items from that reward moment that weren't always tied to the item slot associated with the cache. So we've gone through, we've made some changes on the loot side to ensure that won't be the case anymore. So if you go and you open a boots cache,
Ile
there'll always
kosztują
be
bilety
boots
na
from that
BlizzCon?
cache. So that's going to be a change. That's also, that change has been propagated or propagated to the Helltide caches as well. It shouldn't be the case anymore that you end up opening a two-handed weapon cache and you just get a ring or something along those lines. And then also, Helltide chests now also have specific icons on the map to indicate their type. So if you're trying to figure out exactly where rings could be found or where you could find light weapons or whatever else, it's a little bit easier for you to find those things from the map level as you're
Od
looking
300
around.
dolców się
So yeah,
zaczynają
some good
bilety na
changes for
BlizzCon.
in-game activity stuff there.
All right.
Kurwa, to
Got,
tyle się nie płaci za
some UI, UX changes.
line-up najlepszych metalowych kapel przez cały
putting into
weekend,
the
kurwa.
game. Joe, do you want to take us through these?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, players have been able to mark items as junk for a while now, and you can.
Wiecie co w tej grze by się chciało powiedzieć? Że kurwa tą całą grę się powinno oznaczyć jako junk i ją wypierdolić w chuj.
It's really sort of, some players have different ways that they want to manage their inventory. You know, they've got players who are like, I want to go back to town.
Na Q&A to by było dobre pytanie.
Or I want to do it in the field. And so we want to provide more flexibility for players who like to manage their inventory in different ways. To do that. So we've added the ability to favorite items, and of course, this protects from situations where you might have accidentally salvaged or sold an item that is really important. When you use the sort button in your inventory or in your stash, the aspects that have the same power will now be sorted together.
Wow, sortowanie dodali.
Helps out a lot more when you're trying to dig through your inventory and figure out exactly where things are.
Yeah.
This is
dodaliby na przykład wyszukiwarkę.
Subtle. So when you're looking at the affixes that are listed on an item tooltip, so maybe you have strength and crit chance, something like that. The sorting of those affixes is now consistent within the type of affix that it is. So if you have two items that both have strength on them,
koszulę, myślałem, że na jakieś dymy, kurwa, idę po żonobijkę, bo to jest warte.
Which makes it a little bit easier to evaluate
when you're comparing
two items to each other.
Exactly.
And dungeon map tooltips. This is, I know, Adam, this is one that
this is one I like. As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So they'll now display, when there's an active whisper, they'll now display the aspect name and the description. It's no longer hidden by the whisper being active on the dungeon.
Yeah, everyone's got one or two things in particular that are fairly small in isolation. They're like, oh, thank God that thing is changed. Like that one thing got updated, which is great. We're excited.
This is a really
Już masz
cool
dzisiaj banąłem Kerra. Ja też mam, ale na YouTubie.
And I think we have video of this. This includes text search.
Patrz.
You've got a bunch of different filters down
Jest
there.
wyszukiwarka.
Filter by item type,
Patrz.
item rarity. You can filter by secret.
Kto by na to wpadł, żeby do gry, w której dropisz przedmioty i kumulujesz je w staszu, by dodać wyszukiwarkę. Patrz.
And this searches across all your stash tabs too. So if you take a look at the top there,
wow.
you can see that wow, it's a little bit hidden by the tooltip right now.
Wow. Dzięki Kubajto za 7 miesiąc.
There are 4 items in this tab that have the
genialne.
to fill the criteria and none in the other tab. Or in this case, there are 3 in that tab and 1 in the other tab. So they're highlighted, so make it easier for players to search through and find items in their stash.
Yeah, another hotly requested item from players as well. A lot of our UI UX updates in general are, fueled by feedback that we've received either, through social media or on our forums.
Absolutely.
Trendsy też, no.
We have some more.
Streamer mode has been implemented.
Players that want to hide identifying information.
Po chuj to przecież jak i tak tego nikt nie streamuje.
For other players can now find these settings in the social options menu.
That's right, streamers. You got streamer mode.
Streamer mode.
And this is a one that we've seen a lot of feedback on. Players want to be able to hide vulnerable, the status effect texts. So vulnerable, dodge, fortified. This is an option that's been added to the menu to hide those, so you can hide
Napisałem, że to jest nie do pomyślenia. Jeśli content creator głosi opinię na Twitchu, to ktoś przychodzi i ją komentuje. Podniósł ręce do głowy, chciał coś powiedzieć i się zająknął i dał bana. I powiedział, że jednak mu się nie chce. No jasne.
Fortify. Totally fair. Happy to get this out to players. Yeah.
And we've added an auto run feature, so you can bind a key to auto run. And then you can, the character will run in the direction that they're facing on a controller, or the direction that the mouse cursor is located. So you can start auto running, and then you can review your inventory, bring up the map, do those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then we have a lot of
one more thing.
Oh,
I don't want to forget.
I'm like, see, we have so much stuff, and I know. I try to get ahead of myself. And
yeah,
like,
but
let's go to the next section.
This one,
wszyscy chcą nakładkę mapy. Blizzard, pozwolimy wam oddalać minimapę.
The improvements to Nightmare Dungeons to help navigate through them. This change to the minimap significantly zooms out the base zoom level of the minimap, and this will really help players navigate through towns, navigate through some areas of the world that are sort of more dense in terms of terrain and obstructions, and navigate in dungeons. This means that when you're in a dungeon, you can see more of the dungeon layout that's near your player on the minimap than you could before.
Yeah, if you're approaching a fork in the overworld, you're not sure which way it leads back to the main trail. Like this is definitely a huge benefit for players. Right. Yeah.
And I know now I can get ahead of myself here. We have a lot of updates regarding items as well that we do want to kind of go over. So, Mr. Joey P.
Itemizacja.
Happy
I
to
chuj,
talk
Diablo
about
do góry nogami
yeah, made a few
obrócą.
changes. I know that some things we've already talked about a bit before.
Gemy już nie
But
dropią.
here, gems no longer drop
Dostajesz
directly
teraz
as
gem
rewards.
shardy,
Players
dostajesz
earn
nowy
these
typ
new gem shards
materiału
as fragments,
i u
materials
jewelera
that you can
craftujesz
use
gemy
to
z
craft
tego.
their own gems. So basically, as you're wandering through the world,
Okej, przynajmniej nie masz plecaka zajebanego drzemami, ale jaki jest problem? Drzemy są totalnie bezwartościowe. Dżem podnosiłeś, dodałeś do ekwipunku i miałeś go totalnie w dupie.
Shards going to go into your materials tab, and then as you want to create gems, you can go back to the jeweler. You could spend those fragments to create gems rather that will go into your inventory that you can then
Jestem po
slot
godzinnej rozmowie
on
z MKR-em i gość jest odklejony.
All of those gems have been randomly appearing.
Zostawcie już tego MKR-a, no nic więcej nie może zrobić, no. Co on ma zrobić? Przeprosić, kurwa? I powiedzieć, że się mylił.
Of course, when you do create a gem, it does then appear in your inventory, which then allows you to then, of course, sock it into an item. But now you won't be finding all those gems out in the world that will fill up your inventory. Those will just appear as materials now.
Ja do dzisiaj mam przed oczami ten kurwa tą miniaturę. Itemizacja w Diablo 4 okazała się... Nie, handel w Diablo 4 okazał się genialny.
Enchantment cost been updated. What a strange settle line,
what
right?
A very general.
So the ultimate thing here that I want to cut to is enchantment costs overall have been reduced, but
MKR właśnie powiedział, że drugi sezon wygląda całkiem okej. MKR mówił, że Diablo 4 wygląda niesamowicie. To już widzowie sami musicie zinterpretować. Nie no, w tym sezonie są dobre zmiany, ale czy te zmiany wpłyną na to, że ta gra będzie ciekawsza? Nie. Nie, to nie są wystarczające zmiany. Ta gra wymaga gruntownej przebudowy, a nie kurwa quality of life'a. Fajnie, że pojawiają się rzeczy w quality of life, które powinny się już bardzo dawno tu pojawić, ale to nie naprawi tej gry.
Are going to help those defer a lot of those costs for players if you don't end up using a lot of that gold to go and trade and do other things instead. So yeah, big changes there. Okay, so another really big change here is that when players get into higher world tiers, I'll read the line and then I'll explain it. So craft materials will drop in place of lower item power, normal magic, and rare equipment in world tiers 3 and 4. What do I mean when I say that? What I mean is when you go into world tier 3 and you start getting sacred items dropping for monsters, you will find that you will no longer be having normal items dropping. Only items will drop for monsters will be sacred in nature, their equipable gear, right? So instead, when you would have got like a rare item before, that is going to be, you're going to get crafting materials that you can use instead, dropping on the ground if you just go run over and pick up, as opposed to having that rare item in your inventory. Now, this is another one of the reasons why we made this big change, the Whisper Gold increase. We made some other gold increases as well, to basically offset any concerns that players might have about needing to sell off all of those typical rare items, as they're progressing through. Now, I will say that if a legendary item drops for you, that is.
Słuchajcie, zamiast naprawić przedmioty normalne i magiczne, to teraz nie lecą i będą zamiast nich leciały materiały. Problem, kurwa, nieużytecznych przedmiotów normalnych i magicznych naprawiony.
When you go into World Tier 4, only ancestral items will drop for you as you're playing. You will no longer see sacred items or normal items from that point forward. But once again, legendary and unique items in that case of sacred nature or normal nature will still continue to appear for you as you continue to play. But for the most part, getting a ton of these items out of your inventory as part of this change.
Yeah, it's this and the gems changes are going to help out a lot with inventory management for players, and and ensure that they're focusing on like the items that they're really going to want, and then of course getting the benefit of getting all the materials now from the items that were dropping beforehand. They'll just now be materials that will be in their materials tab.
Yeah,
To już nawet nie ma co hejtować, to nie ma co kopać leżącego, to jest tak nudne.
So another thing we're doing as part of Season 2, and again, this is on the Eternal Realm and also in the Seasonal Realm, is when you start to go into World Tier 3 and 4, items that are dropping for you are going to get more powerful based on the monster level that you're fighting. You know, this is in response to...
Patrzcie, lepsze przedmioty dropią. Wyższe poziomy mobów będą dropiły wyższe poziomy przedmiotów.
First really great opportunity that we've had to spend a good amount of time kind of responding to this feedback, getting things tested, getting things into the game. So we're really excited to offer things like this. But no, there's situations
co to zmieni, że będziesz miał przedmioty z wyższym item powerem, kurwa?
They'll finish off a lot of the gear that they need inside Sacred Tier.
Siema, Bojan.
50, 55, 56. They start getting ready to make the transition potentially early.
Na poważnie, co zrobić, żeby przy większej ilości gniazd czy dojebanych statów, żeby przedmioty o niższym rarity były dobre? Weź sobie kurwa materiału mnie na YouTube na ten temat. Weź sobie wykrzyknik D4 i obejrzyj. Masz 40-minutowy materiał na ten temat. Nataniel, dzięki za Prime'a.
As you're progressing through. Now the way that we change things is that starting in Sacred Tier, I guess we'll talk about Sacred Tier first. So if you fight a level 55 monster, you'll have the typical Sacred eye power range when you're fighting that creature. When you fight a level 56 creature, the eye power minimum and maximum of that range.
Dzięki Vertigo za Prime'a.
So every monster level from that point forward, the eye
Nie skalują się, że moby. Moby się skalują do pewnego progu i przestają się skalować. Wypierdolili skalowanie.
Higher level, more difficult creatures as they're progressing through the game. When we talked before about the monster trailing change that we made, the monster level trailing change we made earlier in the presentation today, Joe mentioned that was kind of aligned with some other things we were trying to do to make sure the players felt they were getting more powerful as time progressed. And part of that is ensuring the players have a sense of progress as they go. And when we think about sacred and ancestral progression, when you're getting into that part
kurwa, co on pierdoli, serio, widzowie, co on pierdoli, no.
Do you have the time needed to go and kind of gather items of value that they can use to put their build together?
Typy dają chujowy hotfix jako kurwa sezon. Coś, co powinno w tej grze pojawić się kurwa w becie, bo po to była beta, już w becie się o tym mówiło. Wprowadzają to kurwa w drugim sezonie i dają do tego taką narrację, jakby to kurwa obracało grę do góry nogami. To kurwa nic nie zmieniają te zmiany gameplayowo. Ta gra nadal będzie gówniana, no. Fajnie, że jest wyszukiwarka, fajnie, cieszę się, to są kurwa pozytywne zmiany. Fajnie, że dodali kurwa bossów nowych do gry i ich przekolorowali. Fajnie, że wpadli na to, że można kurwa ze śmieci wyciągać rzeczy już zrobione i odświeżyć, dawać im nowe skiny i wygląda to kurwa jak świeże. Fajnie. A to nie jest wystarczające, no ta gra jest mechanicznie zjebana.
So you'll get to a point where you're fighting level 150 creatures and such that the eye power range of that item, 155 monsters and such. The eye power range of those items
to jest nadal moja cena.
On par. It's like 920 to 920 is like the end result long term.
Tak, no to są zmiany typu powiększymy czcionkę w dialogach, żeby gracze nie musieli wzroku
slowly shrink down that window so that as you're getting drops for yourself in the world and in Nightmare Dungeons and other content types, it's much more likely to get the maxed out eye power rolls that you're looking for. Now, one change we did make as part of this is
wow, ty właśnie pisał każdego RPG i masz wyższy poziom, tym lepsze przedmioty ci dropią i masz łatwiej postać wymaksować. Wow, kurwa. A jak głupi robiłem Holy Grail, chłopy na krwawym wrzosowisku na normalu i mi przedmioty nie leciały na wyższy poziom niż 5.
So that will continue to grow as you get more eye power for these gear pieces.
Nie wiem, kurwa, ja się nie spodziewałem, serio?
Naturally going to push players to fight more difficult monsters, and we want that. We think that's fun, right? But that's not. We want to make sure that other content pieces also provide the opportunity.
Patrzcie, te kurwa wszystkie zmiany się tyczą tego, że Trio of Whispers jest zbuffowane. Pan doktorek, dzięki za Prime'a.
Rewards for that are actually 10 eye power better. We should say that they're 5 monster levels higher than what you would normally get, because usually
ja pierdolę, to jest taki kał.
based on your character level at the moment that you turn these things in, based on the world tier that you're in. Now there's an offset, so you get additional item power value from the items that you would get from that cache normally. And then, in addition to that, the upgrade cache is the legendary cache that can occasionally appear when you're turning in your whispers. Those are going to give you 20 eye power above what your level is at that moment. meaning these end up being compelling ways for players to want to go and try to collect rewards from engaging with these systems. Again, while they're earning tons of gold, and also while they are getting materials they need to go and summon the Echo of Varshan in World Tiers 3 and 4. And then next, of course, is Helltide caches. Also
zwiększają item level na kurwa
all
nagroda.
Helltide caches, starting right in World Tier 3, have a 20 eye power offset attached to them for the wars that come
Kto
out
tą
of that.
grafikę do tego
Now,
tła
question might get
zrobił?
asked
Ja nie mam
is,
pojęcia.
does that mean that that eye power value is going to go above the cap of what
Oni to
Sacred
w
or
pańcie
Ancestral
kurwa
normally,
usuwali,
provide?
czy o
The
co
answer
chodzi
is
o
no.
to na
So
przykład?
this does not mean that the very best items in the game are going to be delivered to you from Whisper caches and Helltide caches. Only that these changes allow these cache systems to provide meaningful rewards much longer into progression.
And again,
it was just tied to level.
And again, the eye power cap is you mentioned
920 for Ancestral.
920.
Yeah.
To jest najnudniejszy
I know
patch
there's a
w
lot of people
historii
asking
game devu.
So.
So yeah, we think that these are going to be some good changes for players to feel that they're getting some of those upgrades as they play through those content tiers in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. They have a smoother journey as they continue to level up their character. This mixed with like the experience point changes and a lot of the Nightmare Night stuff that we talked about so far, represents a big, basically us trying to respond to like our experiences playing again and then the feedback from players.
I'm gonna like go back to 20 minutes or 30 minutes ago when we were talking about the 5 bosses and being able to progress through them. One thing that we talked about Uber Duriel and how
Duriel, king of maggots, His Majesty.
Exactly. Uber Duriel. But with all these new bosses, because they all have their own loot tables and everything associated with them, at least with Duriel, because that in itself is a level 100 boss. So what type of like kind of item power can you expect to find off of like Duriel?
Yeah, you'll find eye power 920 stuff off Duriel. So there are unique items that Duriel drops.
900 ile?
Some of them are very new and coming in with Season 2 that only come from Duriel that are just really powerful, right? And then there are
Ile on powiedział? 925?
Now, for the unique items dropping him, there is a tighter range versus like relative to other bosses and other things. In general, unique items that drop from these bosses they're not going to roll the full like 75 eye power range. They're much tighter across the board as you kind of step up into the more powerful bosses. So I think the eye power range for Duriel.
To nie jest gra w progresji całej mechaniki. To jest gra w progresji całej gry.
For that number, but that is increased.
Singleplayerowe gry mają kurwa bardziej rozbudowaną progresję niż Diablo 4.
From Duriel.
Zauważ, że tutaj elementy na przykład stąd i tu są przyklejone, kurwa. World Tier, Whispers, Helltide, boss, ten sam boss.
There's not a better version of that specific uber unique item that you can get. That's always the very best one.
Yeah, so if you find a Shaco, you've got the very best version right there. So
yeah, you have it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Nice, cool. Well, I know we just went through a slew of changes and updates coming to the game. And again, like to reiterate, we still actually have more to talk about.
Yeah, we didn't talk about classes.
We didn't talk about unique items. We didn't talk about unique item changes.
We didn't talk about the damage buckets.
And I will note, like, unique item changes, like I said before, like pretty much almost all unique items, or nearly all unique items, are getting some sort of update, which we will talk about on October 10th. I know a lot of people have asked for Mr. Adam Jackson to reappear, and he will be back on October 10th to talk about all the different class changes that are coming. And
he has been summoned.
He has been summoned. He's on vacation.
He's on vacation.
We got the materials.
He's watching, though.
We got the materials to summon.
But yeah, we're going to be talking about all that stuff. We're also going to be talking about the resistance changes and stuff that we've been talking about already today, and how it's going to be much more valuable for people to be ensuring that they have it on like rings and
Będą gadać widzowie za tydzień o zmianach w resistach. Zmiany w resistach będą polegały na tym, że jedyne co musisz zrobić, to przykleić system z Diablo 1 i Diablo 2. That's it.
Boss, but like with the current resistance system, how is that going to work? And the 1010 stream is really going to explain it, how the streams work.
To jest kurwa, widzowie, 10 minut kodowania.
We will even be talking about the first update that will be coming even after Season 2 launches. And that's something that, you know, we can briefly talk about here, which is after Season 2 launches, we'll of course have additional updates that will be coming within the season. And
Ciekawe
each of these
jestem, ile
updates are
Battle
going
Passów
to
oni sprzedadzą
be
w kolejnych sezonach.
new things, new ways of being able to enjoy the content and new features that players have been asking for. So we'll be actually showcasing what 1-1 will be in that October 10th stream as well. So people will get an early look of what the first update post Season 2 launch will be. And of course, we have a lot more to even talk about at BlizzCon. So if you are going to be at BlizzCon, make sure to check it out. Of course, we'll be streaming, and there'll be more information about, I know, the BlizzCon collection items and everything that will be available for players to be able to partake in. That will have you know, items within Diablo 4, and of course items from other games that are going to be featured at BlizzCon, like World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and all the others. So.
But most importantly, at BlizzCon, you can bug Adam in person.
Yes, you can bug all of us in person at BlizzCon. So make sure to, if you are going to be coming to Anaheim, to check it out. And if you're interested in coming, of course, you can grab a ticket to BlizzCon, which is in early November. So should be good. First weekend in November, Friday and Saturday. All right. One other thing that we did want to talk about is there's some changes that are coming in regards to Smoldering Ashes. For the free tier of the Battle Pass, because we've gotten a lot of feedback from players, and this kind of ties back to the experience items that we were talking about, where the tiers of the Smoldering Ashes were pretty deep in, and
to Saraxel praca w ciężkich warunkach, czyli w Blizzard Activision.
And I know one of the big changes that we're doing is the character level requirements for those specific tiers with Smoldering Ashes have been reduced. So players will now actually run into those Smoldering Ashes and be able to use them. And they will automatically unlock now, which is really nice, earlier within the actual Battle Pass as they're playing through, which is
so if you happen to like miss one when you're leveling up, which I think happened to a lot of players, certainly happened to me. It's like so now when you go back to the when you go and you actually open up the Battle Pass, you'll see that you've already unlocked those Smoldering Ashes.
Ej, serio, to jest kurwa...
Season blessings.
Ja nie mogę, nie? Tego się oglądać nie da.
Yes, there are 3 new season blessings for Season 2 that will be part of the new Battle Pass, of course. And,
Oglądanie półtorej godziny tego segmentu mnie kurwa zmęczyło bardziej niż 24-godzinny stream.
And available for players as well. So of course you can now change from blue town portal to different color town portal if you'd like, and there will be other town portal skins available in the Battle Pass as well. So
yeah, I like this angelic sort of feel to this one.
Angelic one,
very cool.
Yeah, you can look like you're friends with Imperius or like best friends with Imperius, with your new town
and again,
portal.
The free track.
Exactly.
Yep.
Imperius, Inarius, sorry.
Well, any of the angels.
Technically, it would be more orange, I would say, if it was Imperius to match him. So
to jest to skiny, to jest rekolor.
Some Heroes of the Storm lately. So.
Love Heroes of the Storm.
I've got Imperius on my mind right now. Well, we do actually have one other big news thing that we did want to actually talk about today as well, which is we are bringing more Diablo 4 players into the world, because we're here to announce that Diablo 4 is actually going to be launching on Steam with the launch of Season 2. So on October 17th, Diablo 4 will be available on Steam.
Kurwa.
Nice part about being on Steam, of course, is it carries over the
Czy oni mają dość złego PR-u i chcą się wpierdolić po prostu w leży lwa, żeby to ludzie skurwili do zera.
Cross progression will work
ja pierdolę.
Day 1 for anyone who does purchase on Steam. And so if
oni chcą, żeby jeszcze w jednym miejscu ich nisko ocenili. Im jest mało. Oni leżą, ale kurwa chcą, żeby ich kopać. Oni chcą, kurwa. Ja pierdolę, kto podejmuje te decyzje. Przecież to jest najgłupsza rzecz, kurwa.
If you have a Steam Deck, it's another option of being able to play Diablo 4, because you can now take it like on the road with you, which is really good to see. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, lots of
Sanctuary on the go.
Sanctuary.
So masa iść, no.
Which is good. And by the way, cross progression and everything, of course, that works with the console players as well. So if you're playing on Steam, you'll of course be able to play with Xbox and PlayStation users from that end. But I'm really impressed, by the way.
Ale będzie beka z pokazywania tego.
Content here in a pretty efficient manner.
So fast.
We actually are going to go through
Ile
some
osób gra w Diablo 4 na Steamie?
from everyone in
Q&A
Twitch chat. So
widzowie,
if you
pytania
actually
o
have a
Battle
question
Passa.
and you're in Twitch chat, feel free to ask the question. We'll try to grab as many questions as possible, and I'll use my trusty iPad
How to refund.
and ask the questions, and of course call out people's names and attempt to pronounce them correctly. But I know we will start off with one first question here as we grab more within the group. But what plans do you have for itemization?
Yeah. So we've obviously got a ton of feedback about the feeling of earning rewards in Diablo 4 and the feeling of like the power of those items and how interesting they are and how easy they are to compare and what the path towards getting like perfect items feels like and really what players are meant to do once they reach like that threshold of the game where they're trying to like fully like perfect their build. We have a lot of ideas of things we want to add on the itemization side in Diablo 4. The sorts of things I talked about earlier in the item section, like those really are just like some first small steps of the sorts of things we want to do. But we're reading through all this feedback. We have all like really interesting ideas and designs that we're working on the side. And we're excited to be able to bring those things to you over time. And we'll be talking about more of them in the future. But yeah, we have big plans for itemization for Diablo 4.
Mamy duży plan,
Really,
widzowie.
the themes here are more endgame stuff and improvements to itemization.
Yeah.
All right. Quick question here from Cursed47. It's great to improve mounts, but what will you do to fix and address open world items? Teleporting from Nightmare Dungeon to Nightmare Dungeon sometimes isn't very fun and wasn't the best way to fix the
Cała gra
time
oparta
issue.
na
Is there more
idei
plans
open
for
worlda,
world,
zamyka się kurwa w
elements,
Nightmare Dungeonach.
using mounts sometimes doesn't feel like it matters after a certain point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What's being asked there?
They're asking if there's going to be like some more plans for some like open world content or anything that will be on the open world. And I think a lot of this ties back to some of the stuff that you're actually seeing in Seasons. Because Seasons actually
Pogadane,
adding,
kurwa.
a lot more content to the open world, even with Season 2, with us being able to add additional objectives and everything for players to actually grab.
Yeah, there are. We want to have a mix of gameplay that occurs in dungeons, which is, core Diablo gameplay, and gameplay that's occurring in the open world. And so with Season 2, you
Wiecie
see
co?
things like,
Do pewnego momentu to było śmieszne, teraz to już jest żałosne i smutne, kurwa. Oni mnie niedługo pozwą, kurwa, za naśmiewanie się z nich. To już jest ten moment, gdzie zaraz będzie zagrywana karta ofiary.
Yeah, in addition to that, just making sure that the various activities we have in Diablo 4 feel more rewarding to engage in on their own. One component of that being that the summoning materials that you need to go
Główny game director gry, Joe Shelley, nie mam pojęcia jak odpowiedzieć na proste pytanie z Q&A.
Uber unique opportunities, like these represent, I think, good steps forward to kind of make these content feel more compelling in general.
Shelley nie ma tak kurwa pojęcia o produkcie, który tworzy. Jego powinni z Fergusonem w pierwszej kolejności wykurwić z tego, nie?
There's a lot of room there for us to continue to create more distinct activities that appeal to different kinds of players, and also just continue to bring out like various kind of parts of Sanctuary to make things more fun and engaging for players. So this really is, again, like just the first step of the sorts of things we want to continue to add and inject into Diablo 4 over time, right? And adding more content to the overworld is a part of that. Particularly like, content that has like high monster density and is like fun to go engage with and slaughter monsters in.
Adding it and the relevance of the content in the world, right? Because if there's content in the world, but it's not relevant, then you're just riding past it, right?
That's absolutely right. Yep.
We have a question from these names. Legless puppy, which probably rolls around on wheels, and it's probably a cool puppy.
That sounds really sad, actually. In a way.
I mean, if they're on wheels, that's pretty cool.
I mean, I guess if it has wheels,
sure. Rolling on some good rims or something.
Okay, I guess Adam likes taking legs off puppies, but weird take.
Is there any chance of the level cap being removed off of Paragon glyphs?
Shelley nie wie. Nie wie, co powiedzieć.
So we have talked before quite a bit about how we look at power progression.
Shelley dostaje pytanie.
Particularly, we talked a lot more about this like before launch, and a little bit before Season 1. But Diablo 4 is designed with the idea of kind of cap power progression.
Czemu go nie wypierdolą z tego?
We want to make sure that we find the right ways for players to continue to grow the power of their characters as they continue to engage in the game. we will be looking for more opportunities for players, particularly as they reach level 100 and they're looking for more ways to get stronger and get more powerful. We want to find more ways for them to do that feel in ways that feel compelling and are fun, and don't feel like this extra task work they have to do in order to like take that next step.
Słusznego co spite, piwko rzeźnik.
Yeah, I think if I think about the reasoning behind that question, I think part of it comes down to
Minęło 30 sekund, jeszcze nic nie powiedział.
which has good reasons, like you're talking about, but also
Są dobre powody.
players are saying like, well, I ran out of stuff to do.
Gracze mówią wow.
Stuff to do, right? And
Czy fajnie by było robić więcej rzeczy?
Increasing the Paragon glyph cap could be one way to do that.
Paragony.
The way we're doing it in season 2
tak
is,
jak w pytaniu,
through all of
podnieść.
the
Pomyślimy.
Yeah, the endgame boss mechanics and then the vampire
Coś z bossami powiążemy. Tak jest.
But yeah,
Essa.
it's not even just having more things to do. It's making sure that there are more things to do that impact.
Kurwa, nie, Shelly to by chyba bez kitu podstawowej matury nie zdał, nie? Ustnej. Tak, endgame. Endgame. Zaczaił, że endgame, gracze mówią endgame, powtórzył endgame. Widzowie, endgame. Endgame, nie? Endgame, gracze chcą endgame'u. Endgame? Zaskoczyło. Endgame? Yep. Endgame.
Have a Paragon board reset button, or be able to buy reset scrolls for a set amount of gold or something. Won't talk about anything today, but
we'll look into it.
Wink.
What an interesting idea. What an interesting idea.
There you go. Cool. Next question that we have is from, trying to pronounce these names here. DEYV. Question about Uber Uniques.
Kurwa, oni nie potrafią czytać do chuja, czy o co chodzi?
Stats. So Uber Uniques are going to be one of those things that are going to get discussed, I think, a little bit more next week when Adam is on talking about the content changes for classes and the various like item bucket changes and things, or the affix and skill bucket changes they've made. So I think that's a good question for that group to answer.
Good question.
As part of that conversation.
Jak stare gadanie z supportem Twitcha? Good question.
Particularly with some Uber Uniques.
Yeah. JJ Lafrite says, is the stash search usable for legendary powers and affixes?
Yes.
Yes, you can search through those. So it'd just be, searching through the box or anything like that, because we do have that field that lets you actually.
Przyjmij nam kurwa dzień, w którym Blizzard dał mi bana za używanie supportu.
Nelix87 says, are there any plans to give clans some love? Currently, clan management is very limited. Clan leaders and their officers has very minimal tools to track anything related to the clan. Are there like maybe plans for like clan stashes or more opportunities for clans to actually be able to, share?
Yeah, we'd love to add more social options and in particular clan management tools. More cool things for clans to do together, and that's something that we'll have more to share on in the future.
Peter Odin says, will we be receiving more coins in the Battle Pass instead of 666? And I know that there is a change this season for the Battle Pass because there was a lot of feedback where players would receive platinum and then they wouldn't be able to actually end up using that platinum to be able to grab something from the.
Po chuj oni robią Q&A, jak oni nie są w stanie nic powiedzieć konkretnego. Jaki jest sens robić Q&A, by powiedzieć jasne, przyjrzymy się temu.
Bisepulus? Look, I pronounced it right. How many, proud of myself, how many uniques will you add every season? Any news on set items?
So no news on set items just yet. So in terms of the number of uniques we're adding every season, we've been sticking to around 6 so far. There are more than 6 as part of season 2. So we'll talk
ja
about that.
pierdolę 6 przedmiotów, ale w drugim sezonie jest więcej niż 6, 7.
I think there's more than, I think there's like 12
uniques
12 right now.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll be continuing to evaluate these counts as we go. But now if there's ways for players to farm these things, we're excited about trying to find more opportunities to inject some of them. But we also want to continue to add new legendary aspects as well. And more ways to kind of like create that build and kind of earn it more, before you hit like World Tier 3, right?
Yeah, and in general, Season 2 is represented. Like, we think that there should be more in a season, and Season 2 is representative of that direction.
Yeah. Question from Fletchy. Good name. Good name, not biased at all. how is Duriel going to compare to Echo of Lilith regarding difficulty?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So Echo of Lilith is our pinnacle challenge boss. She is very, very difficult. And we've made some adjustments to her to make her a little bit easier for players of different builds to take down, which I think you've seen some of those changes even during the course of Season 1. But in Season 2, Duriel is designed not to be at that same level of difficulty. He is a little bit easier because you can use all the materials to go and fight Duriel and you could fail. Right, so like we want to make sure that if you have gotten your build together and you know the fight really well and you've got the proper amount of poison resist, which I recommend, that's going to make it a little bit easier to engage with overall versus the hard mechanical challenge that Lilith poses kind of separately. So Duriel is going to be less difficult overall to overcome than Uber Lilith in this way.
I'm going to try to combine two questions into one here because I think they're pretty similar in terms of, or at least we can talk about them both together. Team Loose Leaf asks, will the 5 new bosses you target farm be a permanent addition after Season 2? Don't answer that yet. Oh, you already did. But we can. Thanks, Joe.
But you have to say it before.
I did. I was saying I was going to combine
two.
And then now I can't even find the other question, but it was related to. Oh, here it is. Fat Teppy says, "Do you guys have any plans for Eternal Realm content, something permanent that isn't just seasonal?" Which I do want to note because Joe just mentioned. Yes, the boss ladder items that we were just talking about will be going beyond Season 2, and then they also will be part of the Eternal Realm Day 1 with Season 2. So even Eternal Realm characters will be able to partake in farming those specific bosses.
And the items,
and the items themselves. So.
And yeah, the other side of that is just, so yeah, we're going to be adding more content to the Eternal Realm.
Napiszcie ten, ja zaraz napiszę na czacie do Q&A. Siema, pozdrowisz. Siema, Adam Łuczasz, pozdrów. Fajnie, pokazują to chyba 6. raz, kurwa. Ej, oni naprawdę zrobili tą mapę i myślą, że chyba to jest coś, kurwa, niesamowitego, ta progresja. Jezu, niech oni sobie zobaczą progresję, kurwa, z Daggerfalla, jak jest skomplikowana z gry przed, kurwa, 30 lat prawie.
Question from Ice Gammon. Have you guys given thought to being able to craft specific nightmare dungeon keys rather than crafting over and over to get a specific dungeon?
Yes. We are still kind of talking about how we want players to engage in Nightmare Dungeons and what makes it most fun for them. So we're in constant conversations and we're looking at gameplay and analytics and also just general player feedback. And we're taking all of these things into account. So it is one of the things that we're thinking about.
All right. Question from Digital Wizard 91 regarding endgame boss mechanics. Is there any visual improvements to the readability of their attacks compared to, like, you know, other bosses or other encounters that we've had in the past?
Yes, there have been.
Yeah, I think I know we showed like
really, coś dobrego ogłosili. Zrobili kilka hotfixów, ale gameplayowo nic.
And like we even showed like the boss like quick.
O kurwa jest, widzieliśmy to tylko 30 razy z rzędu zapętlone. Co by musieli pokazać? Przebudowanie kurwa systemu budowania postaci, itemizacji, skilli.
Clearly see where they're going to be hitting when encountering this specific boss.
Co zmieni w nudnym gameplayu? Co w nudnym gameplayu zmienią hotfixy i szybsze levelowanie?
BR Bull.
Będziesz się mniej wkurwiał na nadal chujową grę.
Are you going to be able to save builds to a wardrobe like Diablo 3 potentially in the future?
Oh, builds, yeah, like you can with transmogs right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that we'd like to add in the future.
And then you said that on stream before, actually. Now that I think about it.
It continues to be true.
Yeah, it continues to be true.
Has not changed. Is there any plans for this from Intrepid Gamer? Are there any plans for like adding a trade interface where players aren't having to actually use like other third-party tools, like going over Discord or something like that to potentially find opportunities to find
co powie?
users that might have that.
Yeah, there's some like, functionality baked into trade chat right now.
Ale go kieruje na plecach, kurwa, przypióra, nie?
Like with the material trains can be available for players to use to summon the bosses. I think we're starting to see players begin to stress the systems that we have, and based on their feedback, it's going to advise a lot of how we want to like think about trading in the future for Diablo 4.
Yeah.
So that's going to tell us about like next enhancements we want to make and just general like improvements to the like the kinds of things you can trade, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arcadium,
To powiedział, kurwa,
says,
game director. W trakcie wypowiedzi 3 razy ja.
Upgrading our Codex of Power with extracted aspects.
Yeah.
Let's discuss. Are you guys still interested or looking into this?
We want to make the Codex of Power better in ways like that, and we'll have more to share on that in the future.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people chiming in specifically in chat about like things like leaderboards.
Czy odpalę chociaż na jeden dzień drugi sezon? Ja, jak wyjdzie drugi sezon z Diablo 4, robię stream skracany. Robię 12 albo 24-godzinny stream. I każdy donate będzie wliczał się do skracania czasu trwania gameplayu Diablo na rzecz innych gier.
Don't need to buy the game again on Steam. It's your choice if you prefer to play on Steam.
Zrobię stream skracany.
You do need to buy the
Im
game
więcej
again on Steam.
wpłacicie, tym mniej Diablo będzie.
But if you already have the game, of course you have the option of playing it on the other platforms, specifically from that front. There's some people that prefer to purchase games on Steam and have it available there. So they have that option now, starting with Season 2 on October 17th, when the game becomes available on Steam. So,
yeah. Yep.
Trying to think here. I've now lost track of where I was because I was going down a list. Legless Puppy again has another question. Diablo, or at Diablo, is there any changes planned for glyph experience cap, removing or increasing the level cap on glyphs? To give us more reasons to run Nightmare Dungeons on repeat.
Yeah, I kind of answered this a little bit before. So we are looking at ways to make sure the players feel like they've got good progression opportunities once they reach like level 100. They've capped out some of these sorts of systems. The exact contents of that, or like exactly what we're going to do, we're not ready to talk about just today.
Yeah.
But we are definitely aware of the interest in that particular solution, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about the changes in Season 2 that relate to leveling up to 100. And a natural consequence of this is that more players are going to reach 100.
Yep.
And that means they need content to do. And that's something that we're spending a lot of time thinking about right now.
VZAT says, can Duriel drop 920 item power rare items or just Uber uniques?
No, the items that drop from Uber Duriel at that stage are not going to always be, like the rare items won't always be 920 eye power. They're going to follow the same range as if we were level 100. There's still 75 eye power swing on the rare item drops from Uber Duriel, or the Duriel, the King of Maggots, right? So that's really more the focus there. The unique items obviously will have a much
Czemu oni
tighter
tego nie
range than
przedstawiają,
75
kurwa,
power
tekstowo w
swing
tak
of
dużej
rare
firmie? Nie zbiorą tych ciekawych informacji, nie przedstawią matematyki za tym, co kieruje nimi.
Title range on rare items, then you can maybe potentially think about going and hitting Nightmare Dungeons of a
Nie pokażą jakichś kurwa filmików, jak wyglądają ci bossowie.
higher level range, because then you're going to start having high power min of the rare range start to go higher and higher with every new monster level that you fight.
A lot of questions about loot filters. Don't know if there's any plans or discussions regarding.
Mamy to w planach, pomyślimy o loot filtrach.
I'll just acknowledge that being able to filter your loot is part of ARPG that many players enjoy, and we have heard that feedback, and it's something that we're exploring right now.
No,
And then, let's see, there is a question from Misfit Dio, which is, will Nightmare Sigils rotate within the season, or will it be the same dungeons for the whole season?
It's going to remain the same set of dungeons for the season in the current format. You know, we can talk about what rotating them more frequently would feel like. It would mean invalidating keys.
Dzięki za 9. miesiąc.
We're having a smaller selection of dungeons overall that rotates more regularly. But right now, we've really focused on making sure that we've got, the set of like 25 really exciting Nightmare Dungeons to engage with the season.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll do one more question here, which is, actually, you know what? I know it's a question
nie biorą na
that
te
a lot of people are talking
kurwa
about, which is stash tabs.
spotkania kogoś charyzmatycznego, tylko zawsze wpierdalają jakieś 2 randomowe osoby, co siedzą cicho i nawet się nie potrafią odezwać.
Are there any plans for additional stash tabs in the future or anything to discuss today?
Fletcher i Przepióra są charyzmatyczni, ale dajcie im 2 kolejnych typów, dzięki którym będą w stanie prowadzić jakąś dyskusję.
And that there will continue to be a need for more improvements to being able to store items. That's just players. It's an RPG. Players want to store a lot of items, and we're going to continue to make improvements in this area. You've seen some of them here today in Season 2, and we're going to continue to work on this.
Awesome. So took a bunch of questions here, and you know we
Ja
went through all
pierdolę,
the
to było
season
nudne.
2, season
Błagam,
blood
skończcie już,
changes,
nie mam siły już tego oglądać, widzowie.
season blood mechanics are going to be coming for.
To jest najdudniejszy content, jaki przez kurwa w tym roku chyba wyprodukowałem.
Season of the Malignant actually ends on October 17th. And season 2 starts also on October 17th. All the dates and times are actually going to be listed on a blog that will be live immediately after this this live stream. I will note that the plan is for season 2 to actually start at 10 a.m. Pacific on the 17th. So if you guys want to like pre-plan schedules or anything like that, you have that ability of being able to do so now. So we will actually be back here again for a campfire chat on October 10th. With Mr. Adam Jackson, who will be going over all the class changes, class balance changes, class updates, as again, the resistance updates that are coming in within the game, along with the damage bucket updates for vulnerable, overpower, and critical strike damage updates that are coming, plus unique item updates.
Ja mogę po tym streamie pójść spać, nie? Serio.
Of course, we'll have a Q&A associated with that. So there's a lot to talk about on the 10th. As well. And I will note that we do plan on having patch notes available on the 10th immediately after that stream, so people can read through what is currently 41 pages of patch notes for people to kind of sort through and read through all the changes that will be coming within the game. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Again, Season 2 is October 17th, and again, Diablo 4 will now be available on Steam. You can wishlist that now. And it will be available with Season 2 when it arrives. So we have a lot to talk about on the 10th.
Diablo 4 na
to talk about 121.
A jakbym chciał grać w Diablo 4 na Steamie, to ja muszę jeszcze raz kupić, kurwa?
And of course,
Czy mogę połączyć konta?
At BlizzCon. So thank you guys again from the whole Diablo 4 team here at Blizzard. Appreciate you guys joining in, and we'll see you next week for the October 10th stream. Have a good one.
For playing.
Yeah, thanks.
I kurwa rajzik, widzowie. Pa, Essa, stary rajd leci. Do partnera swojego. Ja muszę bez kitu zobaczyć to, nie? Gdzie kurwa ten rajdzik leci? Kurwa, 100 widzów. To chyba jakaś topowa...
Everybody behave, guys. Everybody behave. Mods, put that up to 30 seconds. Put that slow mode up to 30, if you haven't already. I'm assuming, yeah. Oh, look at you go! Yeah. Just in case. Who knows how
To chyba jakiś topowy content creator z Diablo 4, nie? Widzicie, Blizzard wysłał do największej streamerki z Diablo.
The best. What was I? Just double check that I've got my graphics to the top as well. Hi, Ultra. Why does this go up to Ultra?
Nie, widzowie, jestem zszokowany, kurwa, ten panel był tak do dupy. To był, kurwa, najgorszy panel. Ej, czy ten panel był tak zły, że MKRNet przestał to streamować? Kurwa. Maciejczak net tego nie oglądał.